Okay, my name is Kristen Arrow. I'm co-chair of the Warner's Pond Task Force, and I'm calling this meeting to order at 6:02. And I'll take a roll call of task force members present. Jeff, why don't we start with you and go around the room? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sammy.
Sammy, Public Works Engineer.
Yep.
Thank you, sorry.
Jeff Collins here.
Celia Kay. Rachel Freed, CBI. Vicky Alani.
Malcolm Bryant. David Owen, Concord Scout House. Paul Bohm.
Sven Viva.
Kristen Arrow.
Bill Cremeza.
Keith Hannon.
And who do we have online?
Bruce Curlis, Asada Nipmuc Band.
Jeff Quick,
Clifford,
Department of
Town of Concord.
Corrections.
Whoops,
Sorry,
that?
Ed
There's two
Jefford,
people.
Town of Concord.
Okay.
And
And
Jeff
our
Quick, Department of
Jeff.
Corrections.
Good.
Okay.
So we're missing Liz, Mark Howell.
Mark.
Yeah.
Okay. So very good. So our main goals for tonight's meeting are to share feedback on improving, finalizing the work group proposals and begin planning for our public meeting. Our main agenda you can see our agenda here on the slide. Soon.
The minutes coming.
That's just technology.
There we go.
Okay.
And
And
I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but we're holding this meeting a year ago. The date, you just moved on, but it does say 16th of January 2024.
On the previous slide.
Previous slide, yeah.
It's okay.
Sure, it's
okay.
I'll fix that. Gosh, I checked that.
Okay.
Sorry.
I feel like we just started.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, no.
That's right.
Oh, my God.
Gonna do it all over
No.
again.
Okay, so we'll open the meeting to public comments in just a few minutes. And then again at the end of the meeting. This meeting is being recorded and a video link will be posted to the task force website in a few days. What I'd first like to do is to approve the December 17, 2024 meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the December 17th, 2024 minutes?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do I
Second.
have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, so now we need to take a vote on that. Why don't we work the same way, except Sammy is a non-voting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Aye.
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 Aye,
I was not at the meeting, so I'll have to pass.
Aye.
and I don't think anyone online.
Yeah. Okay.
No, okay, great. So, the minutes, for the December 17th, 2024 meeting. Minutes are approved. Thank you very much. So now, Bill, public comments?
Sure. Before I make public comments, I have a couple of comments of my own, just to say, what I see us doing is gonna be looking at best case scenarios in these three areas, and we're all advocates of those scenarios, right? So we know that we're all pressing it, even if we ourselves don't believe in them, that's our group, and we're advocates for that. People didn't expect me to say that, but I also want to say that I was thinking about this today. None of these are bad. They're all good. All three aren't good. We're trying to decide which one of these good options we're going to go with, and that's going to be difficult. Second thing is we're all good. We're reasonable. We're rational. We actually like each other most of the time. But as we get closer to this decision making, the feelings obviously are getting more intense, and so we have to be aware of that, and they get more acute. And we need to know that. And I guess that's it moving forward. So having said that, it's something which I would also say to the public. So now I would open it up to public and say that we're going to offer you 2 minutes of comments. Be respectful, avoid personal attacks. And is there anyone who wishes to make a comment before the meeting starts? Yes, identify yourself, of course.
Denise Gilbert, I live at Concord Green. I have more of a general comment than specifically about the dam, and I assume that's okay.
Mhm.
Today I was thinking a lot about the first time that I saw Wanders Pond. For me, it was a complete surprise, unknown and unexpected. Walking distance from the small businesses of West Concord, across the street from a playground, there it was. A complete surprise and a delight. Blue sky and clouds reflected in the still water, aquatic birds flying overhead, their calls so beautiful. Time stood still for me as it has for many generations of Concordians and neighbors who have stopped to appreciate it. This small body of water, home for a treasure trove of wildlife and indigenous plants steeped in local history, provider of recreation and peace, is a treasure, yes. It's in trouble. And yes, it is worthy of the time and energy that this committee and town is devoting to research, defend, and preserve it. Please keep on with all the original plans and intentions. Maintain the dam and the fish ladder, dredge the pond. Let's continue to research ways to save this little pond, our local treasure that contains 2 islands. Warner's Pond.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Peter?
Peter Oliver, formerly with the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs, Mass Audubon, and a lot of other organizations, and a bird watcher. Warner's Pond is in my Christmas count area. We do every year for 65 years, which I started when I was in Concord Carlisle High School here. I'm all for leaving the pond as it is with its islands. And when we look at, the scenarios of what is going to be growing there, this is what's going to be growing there. All those exposed mud flats are going to be nothing but 10-foot tall Phragmites. That's Phrag, et cetera, also called common reed from the old world. Something that Henry Thoreau never saw. It's a relatively new plant here. Started out in the salt marshes, but it's spreading everywhere where there's moisture in the soil. If you look around, like where Route 2 crosses the Sudbury River at Emerson Hospital, go down to 9 Acre Corner, you will see this stuff. It's extremely difficult to remove. I was studying a pond on the west side of Bedford on the road to Carlisle many years ago, and it was cattails and various freshwater various kinds of freshwater plants that provide food for lots of birds and animals. And then I noticed purple loosestrife taking over. It was solid, purple loosestrife, got rid of all the cattails. Purple loosestrife has no seeds for any vertebrate, mammal, bird, muskrat, whatever. And these things provide no food for anything. And so when I see, in my mind, a little shallow channel of Neshoba Brook coming by, and then our vision of a beautiful meadow full of wildflowers, I think that's bullshit. It is going to be 100% Phragmites. You won't see the creek whatsoever. And so I'm all for keeping the dam as is. And I do the Christmas count there. There's still fish in there, regardless of the invasive alien Eurasian water milfoil. And the spotted mergansers, common mergansers, I've seen otters there. It is not fish less. But for me, and other bird watchers in town, we'd love to keep it exactly as it is, rather than seeing a sea of Phragmites or a common reed, period.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you.
Okay.
How are we?
Any-
That's great.
any-
Any other comments? No?
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it. Okay. Rachel,
Welcome to the task force's 17th meeting. I have a few updates and a little background, a little information on our progress so far, and then we're going to move into a little bit more about the agenda and what we're going to do today, following up on Bill's comments that sort of set the stage for the discussion tonight. First of all, we don't have a note taker tonight, which is why we have 2 recording devices. And I would just ask that you try not to talk at the same time, because we have to get the minutes off the audio. So it's really hard to do that if we have multiple voices at the same time. Toby is in Dubai and I'm here. So that is why you'll hear you'll hear some more about that. we want to commend you all on the incredible amount of work that you have all done on these proposals. I think I saw one come in that was at the 17th round or something, you know, the revision work and the amount of dedication and time that you put into this is really impressive, and we really appreciate it. And it just represents the culmination of a lot of work, not that we're at the end, but that you have stuck with this so long. And honestly, not all groups will do that. So it's been really great to see the amount of energy and sort of people digging into these issues. And I think it will pay off in the long run, although it may feel like the end is just never gonna come, but it is. So the other piece of this is that we have had, CBI has essentially run to the end of our budget as of, I think, this meeting, or maybe it was the last meeting. And we have received a budget extension from the town. That extension will allow us to facilitate 5 more meetings. One of those meetings is a public meeting. So there are 4 task force meetings where CBI can be present, and that's
Sorry.
and so that is, so the timing, it's not a timing issue in terms of a calendar date, it's a timing in terms of the number of meetings that we've calculated that we can move forward with. So that means that we need to be efficient and we need to be concise, and we need to really try to have the meetings accomplish everything that we need to each time, because we just don't have a lot of wiggle room here. I don't know if you want to say more about that, Delia. Okay, if people have questions about that, I would turn you to Delia. So where we are right now is really what Bill has talked about. We set up the work groups as advocacy groups, and we're aiming for best case scenarios from each of the proposals. And I think you are very close to achieving that point. It's okay if there are conflict areas in those proposals, and it's okay if there are conflicts between the proposals. It's really important at this stage of the game to remember that the proposals are not the recommendation. The proposals do not represent your deliberations. They represent the best case scenario that you can make to put these, to describe these possible alternatives to the world, to the town, or to each other. And in terms of disagreements about facts or statements or concepts or the way that issues are described or the way that a future state is described, it's really, really important that everyone on the task force can live with the statement. And that's the goal that we're going for here. We are not going for a truth or a false, and we are going towards how can we describe this issue in a way that everyone can live with it. May not be the best way that you would like to see it, but it's good enough that you can live with it, and it's not going to cause you heartache in the night or make you feel like this was not at all what you think should be. We are struggling a little bit here, and it's very normal to be struggling with the difference between fact and belief. And facts never persuade beliefs. We don't want to go down that road, and we really don't want to get into fights about data. So what we have done, what Toby and I have done in our very, very long distance collaboration over the last week is to try as hard as we can. And most of this is due to Toby just doing amazing work while on airplanes, to pull out all the comments that we got and all the revisions that we got on the different documents, on the 3 proposals. And we've set them up in a way to sort of lay out the areas where there's still concern, the areas where comments are still kind of out there. And we have made a stab using both the revisions that the work groups have made, and then our own sense to try to come up with language that we think might address the concerns. So I just want to do a blanket apology ahead of time because we have probably missed some stuff. And that's okay. We will fix it as we go. We also wanna, I wanna stop there just for a minute to just kind of play out kind of the next steps that we're looking at. One is that in terms of the schedule, we're looking at the next task force meeting being January 30th. We're aiming for a public meeting to take place the week of February 24th. And then task force deliberations would go on in March and April. We don't have dates for any of this, and we want to talk more with you all about that, and we'll do that at the end, but I wanted to just kind of continue that thought about we've got 5 meetings left, and this is sort of the array that we see. We see the whole thing wrapping up at the end of April. Knock wood. In terms of how to handle the issue questions, what we are proposing is what we call a small group process. And basically, the practical approach to this is that we're going to show you some slides that show the issues that we think are still in question. The places where there are disagreements about language, there's disagreement about how it's stated, there's disagreement of whether we should be saying this at all, should it be in this proposal, should it go in another? We've pulled those out and we put them on slides and sort of going to blow them up for you. And we're going to start with the dam removal group because they got short shrift last time. We are proposing a process. It's called a small group process. Essentially, if the task force tonight can resolve these questions in the full group and come up with draft language, I will take all the notes on that and we will move on. If the task force gets stuck, some of these issues may be very thorny. We would ask that a small group of participants and volunteers from the task force, meaning like 4 to 5 people, meet in a subgroup that'll be facilitated by either Toby or me or both of us. And that's the group that will dig in and will decide how to resolve this issue. So there's sort of 2 elements to this. One is that you agree to do that and it doesn't happen in the big group. And the second is that you trust the people that are in that group, that they're going to speak for your interests. So really need your engagement in that to have that happen. The practical reason for this is that it saves a tremendous amount of time. We can do those meetings virtually. They move much faster than having the whole group. And honestly, the way that we have seen some of the issues play out and some of the disagreements play out, they're only between like 2 or 3 people. And we don't think that it's effective and efficient for the whole group to wait while that debate may be happening. It's also kind of uncomfortable that some of these, there are emotions here and we want to respect that and we're comfortable with that, but everyone may not be comfortable that in a big room. The small group meetings are still going to be public meetings, but you might just not feel quite as exposed. So we want to really acknowledge that. And this is, again, it's a very, very common approach in the facilitation world and in groups like this. So any questions or thoughts about that? That was a lot.
I have some things I want to say
Yes,
first,
go
because
ahead,
this
Bill.
came from our planning
Yes,
group.
that's right.
One is, what we were thinking was, is we form a kind of a reconciling group to work out the differences between some of our things. I think it's more than 2 or 3. I think a lot of us have different opinions about various things. And try to work out those differences, and have people from both sides, all 3 sides, if it's the case, work on this. Our hope is that they could come up with some common language, that this is how we interpreted the fact in common. If they can't, that's fine. They can just say, this is what one group says, this is what the other group says, but they're both reasonable and rational things to come to. That's fine. We also thought that, so that's the main thing. Oh, we also were thinking that there are probably other areas, but some of the at least three things came to mind to us when we were working this through. And maybe this is on your slides, Rachel, I don't know. One was the wildlife issue, whether it's more diverse or less diverse with a stream or a pond. Is it more healthy, less healthy? Again, we may not be able to come to a point, but we can at least address it. The other is clearly going to be costs. I mean, I can say for our group, where's Mark? Mark, we blue skied some of those numbers that we put in our report. And I suspect, if you're all being honest, you've all done that a bit in yours. We couldn't get all the numbers, so we kind of filled it up as best we could. So let this same group kind of massage those a bit and get closer to reality for us. And then the third thing that I can think of, and there may be others, is the area of recreation. We've all talked about recreation. It includes everything from access to Scout Island to bird watching, to all those other things. And we all have differences of opinion about whether a dam removal or dredging or doing nothing improves or doesn't improve that ecology over there. So we thought at least those three areas, there might be others, but as we begin to talk, I think it'd be very good for us to keep in mind that we have in our back pocket this smaller group that we would do it. Now, I'm gonna go out even further, forgive me.
Go ahead.
I've already asked, frankly, and we talked about this, I've asked Keith and Jeff, who we both know can work together, but they have difference of opinions. And we thought they would be really, on some things, that's right. It would be great to have those two on the committee. Chris has agreed to do it, and Paul, you may or may not agree to do it. You have to think about whether you'd want to do it, but I've asked Paul too, before the meeting. He was one of the people we thought of. At least those four, we thought would be a good way of going forward.
Ambivalence would be.
That's ambivalence,
At
that's,
the moment, because I really,
yeah.
you're just I'm starting to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, so maybe by the end of the meeting, we can give you another, we'll talk you into it or something, but at least those three, I think, are on board. And we can always fill it out after that. Does that seem reasonable to people to go forward that way? To have know that group's in the background for us to work out any major differences we come to? Does that seem fair?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm a little confused now because Rachel was proposing a
It's the
completely
same thing.
different set of groups.
No, I'm not.
No, same thing. It's the same thing, Malcolm. I'm just wording it differently, I
He's-
think.
he's
That's
saying it
fine.
in
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it came up, it evolved in our planning for this session. That's how we came to it.
I think it's very thoughtful and will help us not stick to these, at least certainly these three issues and
Yeah, and there might be other,
spend the whole night on.
exactly, back and forth. Is this
Instead
one
of a
right?
lot
Is that one right? Yeah,
Clearing up a lot of things, which is
Yeah.
great.
great.
Thank you, Bill. Much
Right.
appreciated.
You
Paul?
mentioned 3 examples. I don't know if those are the examples or just examples.
Just examples. There might be other things too I haven't
Yeah.
even thought of.
One is semi-factual, like costs,
Yes,
but I'm not sure that the small group can resolve that any better than the individual group without a lot of research.
correct,
Second one, I'll call it ecological benefits.
right. I know,
That's not, there's no yes or no. I mean,
Correct.
it's kind of,
but saying that clearly, and we all agree that there's no yes or no and that there's two
No, we
different
don't.
positions, right?
But we don't all agree.
We don't know.
Otherwise,
Well,
why are we having a?
No,
small
no,
conversation?
but your group, as the proposal comes out, can say, we believe this, and the other group could say, no, we believe this, but we all have heard, we've tried to find a reconciling statement. But if we don't, at least we know where we stand with those two groups, or with those
I was
proposals.
just trying to understand the nature of the, not dispute, the nature of the disagreement, whether it's opinion or facts or.
A lot of it seems to me, it's facts, but you also have to interpret the facts. And that seems to be where the problem gets. I mean, for example, you just heard Peter talk about what's gonna happen to, he thinks is gonna happen. He's probably right, but
Bill.
but we don't know,
He's
you know.
not right.
All right, he may not be right. Okay, he may not, what do I know? All right.
He's not right and he does not speak for all voters.
Okay, exactly. All right. So those are the kind of things, at least people, but these are interpretation of facts that we need to work out.
Or, I mean, knowing that it's a possibility, you can plan to stop it happening,
You could.
Right.
You could.
which is exactly what we've done.
All right, that's fine. That's good. What I'm saying is it'd be good if a smaller group of us could try to reconcile the statements between the different groups that are in direct conflict. If you can't, that's fine, but try at least to reconcile the
And I
statements.
think we've done it as a group, we've done it in our small group, I think, and it seems it's happening in the other groups too, raising questions to each other. And saying, what about this? What about?
Yeah, yeah.
We had questions to the dam removal group about the reality of the channel fixing in one place and how are we gonna answer those questions? And we've tried to improve that.
Yeah.
that section.
Yeah.
So I think we can.
One last comment, though. These sound to me uncertain, like uncertainties.
Yeah.
A lot of
We've
them.
articulated uncertainties.
That's a good word.
Are you asking the group to come up with certainty out of it, or can we leave them as uncertainty?
You can leave the uncertainties,
Isn't
but
that-
at least you've had a chance to look at them with less heat, look them over, and then say, look, these are things that, a simple thing would be wildlife. We have two strong opinions about whether whether the diversity of wildlife is better or worse with the pond and as opposed to a free flowing stream. we can actually say that that's so, and we can point out in the final version that each of these groups have this opinion. And we're not judging it, we're just saying that there are two opinions.
Bill, there's an extensive literature out there that states facts, and it's not a matter of opinion.
See, now here we go.
Well,
The
have you
lit-
read
Malcolm,
literature, you can always
Malcolm,
find
here we
literature.
go. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So having
Yes.
people on both of those sides could,
Right.
because
And
you'll
I'm
have,
comfortable with this particular conversation because we're saying, oh, well, there's no, I mean, it's a matter of opinion. It's not a matter of opinion. Whether we decide one way or another is a completely different thing, but I do think we need to be honest.
well,
about what
then the
facts
group,
are.
then this fact group will come back and say, this is real. Okay.
If I can just interject into this, so this is, you're right on, Bill, I mean, and I'm really appreciating this conversation. Remember that there's, first of all, the goal is to use language that we can all live with. If there are impasses where there are people who say, this is a fact, and the other people say, no, it isn't. There are options, like you've alluded to, about putting under uncertainty or noting that this is an issue that the task force could not come to agreement on. Remember that the proposal is serving a purpose in laying out these options to the public. It is not the document that you will necessarily use to make your recommendations or
Correct.
to draw your final conclusions. And it's hard, but it's necessary to try to distance yourself from that and to remember what these proposals serve. Because already, you are entering into a conflict area that could use up a lot of time in this meeting, and I'm sorry to be the time
No, you're right.
bird, but if we can move forward tonight, I think some of this will start to get clearer, because you'll see the language and you'll see the different attempts. And maybe, that'll ease, but we're not trying, the point is, nobody should go into this feeling that their belief or their opinion or their very professional understanding of facts, of scientific facts, is getting run over. That's not
Right.
what we're going for, okay?
And I
Good.
think my understanding of what this is, which I think is helpful, is going to be helpful because there's so much passion about I'm right. I've
Mhm.
done the research. I've been working on this for a year. I know the answer to that
Mhm.
question. I think it's all we're doing is coming up with language that we can all live with, which is going to say, this group feels that this is the fact and it's right because of all the research that they've done.
Yeah.
There is a question that was brought up by the task force related to this. And we should, whatever we're gonna say, like, that's what the language is going to say. So
Right.
you'll get your opinion, you'll get your fact, but you'll be put into question by somebody who equally feels.
Maybe some other group has a
Right.
different.
That's what I think
would-
is happening.
I think we should modify that because if there are facts, we need to accept facts. If we decide to make a decision that ignore those facts, that's okay if we can justify it. I don't
What if
have a problem.
What
with
if I
that.
come up with 7 articles that debate your fact?
If you did, I would read them and see whether I agree with them or not.
So some people have done that.
So there's an interpretation right there.
Exactly.
Let's assume, I mean, I don't have the detail on this, but
Yeah,
that's
some people
exactly that.
have some
There's where
professional
interpretation comes from. What you say are the facts and you might add as facts. I'm not arguing about it now. That's
Yeah.
what the group would do.
That's the issue.
We don't have to.
Okay, right, so having had this conversation, are you ready to move on?
Well, is there an agreement to have that kind of a group?
That's a good question.
Do we get a
So
vote on
I have
it
a-
or?
Yeah,
David,
David?
So, yeah, I'm just wondering if things move to the group, they might get more clarified, but then the group might not even be settled on it. Is it possible then that bring it back?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, then they would bring it back here.
Everything will come back.
It's a
to the task force.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Right. it's a
Recommendation of
recommendation.
language.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Sorry. I
And,
should have said
and
that.
is it like, is ultimate resolution through a vote?
I don't know. It's a good question. I would actually assume so,
And would it?
but
be
maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. That's a
Majority
good question.
or, you know, what?
Majority vote?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'd have to think about that further.
I would hope that, I would hope that we could come to consensus process wise. It would be the chairs to decide
How to do it, you mean?
how to do it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to think about that. It's good.
yeah,
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
good
good
point.
question.
Okay, so is that it for this so far?
Well, wait a
Okay.
minute, are we in favor of a group?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we need to know. If not, that's fine. Yeah, I think we should. So,
I'll make a motion, we should have the group.
great.
Okay, 2 seconds.
Come on, Malcolm.
Second.
Second. All right, Liz seconded. Should we start with a vote? So David? Aye. Malcolm? Aye.
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 Ah, good. Pete? Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. Come on, Paul.
Aye.
You didn't commit yet. I know.
Not me.
No, just an aye for now. That's all. Yeah, that's all. All right,
I'll
good.
vote for you.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Right
Yeah,
now,
seriously.
You've identified 4 people.
So far,
We need to have an odd number.
that's true.
We'll work on that. Maybe it'll be,
It may be Paul's not doing it, and it is an odd thing.
yeah.
That's true.
Let's-
That's true. That's
Let's-
true.
let's Wait till Paul makes a decision.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is, yeah, we should.
Yeah.
That's, I agree with that.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
So the slide that you see is what we identified, the areas like Bill was just talking about, the areas that we think are still the categories of disagreement still. So that they seem to fall into these categories. And again, we may not have gotten them all, and our categories may be broader than what you think they are. So ecological impacts of dam removal, the questions about fisheries, biodiversity, fish passage, recreational impacts of dam removal. So that was a whole, there's a whole slew of things with benefits of dam removal, access to Scout Island, the channel location, whether there'll be access to Scout Island, the deep hole, the channel width, the depth, engineering, whether there's additional engineering needed, everything that falls under that. The scopes of the proposals in terms of there are trails are included in the dam removal proposal. Fish passage is in the pond management proposal. And then there are 3 different alternatives.
Oh, good.
Sorry, good catch.
Good save.
So those are sort of this looking at the broad question of the scopes of the proposals and
Yeah, I hate to say this to you, but I have a problem with the way it's written. It's not just the ecological impacts of dam removal or the recreational impacts of dam removal. It's simply the issues around the biodiversity and wildlife. It may very well be the dredging people who have a problem with that, or it may be our little nothing, whatever we call ourselves now, that's having trouble with that. But in other words, I wouldn't list it that way.
it's okay because I understand that, but this slide is just the intro slide. So this slide there's more to come that's gonna bring this out in much more specificity than.
But isn't this what you're having the work group supposedly work on?
No,
No.
no, okay, so
All right.
this is our introductory slide. From
What are we
plain
calling this?
Dubai.
What is this list?
What is what?
What is this
This list is CBI's attempt to try to capture like the broad categories of where we saw issues. It's really just, it's just really kind of an organizational thing that we did to help us kind of cover the range of disagreement, which, as I said, may not cover all of the disagreements, just as Bill is pointing out, and other people are aware of. Okay, we did what we thought, tried to capture categories that we think are areas that we need to talk about, but there's a bunch more to follow. Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually want to second this because things tend to survive once you have it in written. I think ecological impacts is a topic for all 3.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Recreational impact is a topic of
of
all 3.
Yes.
right.
Yeah, so
Right.
it's just to take that out because that
I agree, completely agree. Completely
then
agree.
Yeah,
then on the scopes, it's just the intro slide. I think I'm still struggle what the scope. The basic scope actually is on the dredging. We have 3 scenarios
Mhm.
proposed.
Yeah.
So what is it? Which scope it is?
yeah,
And then a description of, for, let's say, if it's just the small one, a clear description of, well, that's not really delivering the full point.
No, it's
Yeah.
not.
Right.
So that the expectation is clear if suddenly the decision is for scenario A in that group, it only delivers you a partial solution and you still have something there.
Yeah.
So there's still things open on the basic scope, I think, on the dredging,
Okay.
to settle what is it and an honest and very clear description of the expectation the public should have if you're selecting A, B, or C. What is the outcome? What do you expect from the pond?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay.
And the uncertainties line, I can't see the bottom, but it must say cost, right?
That's cost.
Okay.
Cost, yeah.
All right.
Because cost sources across all three proposals and then perceived risk of future state dam removal requirements.
See, I get rid of that,
Question mark.
get rid of that dam removal, just, don't focus on that alone.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But what you described is sort of a clarification rather than a disagreement of opinion. I mean, there are things,
Yeah,
yeah, I understand what you're saying. But
Yeah,
it's a little bit different than differences of opinions on the ecological benefits.
yeah, but it says review and discussion of written work group proposals.
Right.
Right. So
If we go to the
But
next,
you want a full list? That's not a full list.
so let's just give this a try and see how it goes. So the next slide, which is up. So we started with dam removal. So this slide on the left-hand side column, it says what the issue is. So the question is, what's the impact of dam removal on native fish? So this is the fisheries question of will dam removal improve fisheries? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
first? I guess I was under the impression that we were going to, before we got into all this detail, that I was under the impression that we were gonna talk about the dam removal proposal first.
You know, that's a really good point, Chris, and I kind of skipped over that, but you're right. We should give, the plan was to give the dam removal some time.
Because we haven't had a
Yeah,
chance to
yeah.
really go
Yeah,
through it,
so I wouldn't want to, yeah, I wouldn't. want to-
and then get into
Yeah.
this next.
Yeah, I skipped over that. I'm sorry.
That's
So,
okay.
so let's give the dam removal, well, let's open it up. The way that we did it with the other group.
Correct.
Was that we asked the task force if there were issues at top of mind or questions or improvements that you would offer to make the dam removal proposal better.
No, so we're working from the document that you had sent out as the alternatives, is that correct?
That's correct.
So we're looking at proposal number 2, which I think starts,
Three.
3, I'm sorry. So it starts on what page?
21.
21? So that's where we're working from, right?
Mhm.
Okay. 20. 21, all right. So we go through it page by page?
However you feel that you want to do it with the others.
Is that,
Yeah.
Last time we had
Yeah.
an open discussion.
yeah, open discussion, I agree, yeah, but just if people have questions, Sven, we way of moving them along.
People just, people.
Can I just
Oh, go
confirm,
ahead,
we do
sorry.
it by title, this is the one that ends in
Oh.
V2? Yes.
Yeah, me too.
sorry, just-
Yeah, me too, oh boy, do we ever, I know, I have the same problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we did before was we opened it up for people to raise.
Yes.
Things you had comments on, things that you thought could be better, constructive comments, hopefully positive in terms of making the proposal better.
Okay, questions, issues, or comments?
So
Right.
you're gonna open the hearing.
I don't have it open here.
Is this anywhere in the document or are we going page by page?
I think we might at least start on the first page and then work our way down. Doesn't it make sense to do it that way?
That's what we did last time. We put it up on the screen.
Oh, yeah, can you put it on the screen by any chance?
Yeah.
Perfect, perfect.
I'm so used to being the one taking notes. I keep
Yeah.
looking for the people.
One thing I do like, where you actually have citations, so you make a statement and you have a citation to back that up. To your point about them, at least that's some factual background, doesn't mean there aren't other papers, but as opposed to just a blank statement without support, so I think that's.
Right.
So tiny.
Are we still on the first page?
You
We're
know,
waiting
I
for-
would say that if, while we're waiting for
Yeah.
Delia to find it, if people have questions, comments, please, why don't we just start?
Yeah, I do have a on page 22, and I think this came up at the last meeting there, this, underlined statement about greenhouse gas emissions. Well, this may be true. It is really, I don't think this proposal should oversell that, because if there is a greenhouse gas benefit, it is minuscule. It shouldn't be a selling point for the proposal, I think. I mean, it's really small.
That's an issue that we flagged in our draft, and we have a proposal for how to handle that. So that's, you're on track with some of the information that we've pulled together on the basis of our reviews. I'm not trying to cut off the discussion of that, just one flag
Okay.
that we have.
Liz has been,
Yeah.
I think, our lead on this, right? And I think I don't wanna
No, go ahead.
put the mic in your hand. but
Yeah, no, I
think
mean,
Liz
I-
did the deepest research on that. And we were responding to that criterion of, is it the
Yeah.
net, what's the net?
I think the reason we ended up moving it in here is it had been an answer of yes, no about the criteria. And we didn't want to lose sight of it, that it is generally, dam removal is generally seen as a greenhouse gas solution or carbon solution. So I don't want to lose sight of it. Yes, Morris Pond is tiny, but like tiny things add up,
It's so tiny.
I mean, I was reading something that overall dams are something like 1.3% of all carbon emissions, right? So.
So is there a way to
Yeah.
address the language?
Yeah, and I'm happy-
Is there
yeah.
a way to say it
Yeah,
Well, I
And
think
that's-
that,
covers it?
I think this, I'm sure there's a way to say it.
Yeah.
I just wanna jump in on, I think the mechanism, Liz, correct me where I'm wrong, but decomposition in an anoxic environment underwater, tends to release methane, severe greenhouse gas. Whereas, wet, inundated soils or wet soils tend to fix carbon underneath, and where it's, builds up peat and is less likely to decompose and release carbon into the atmosphere.
Yeah, there's also,
So that ends up fixing carbon, being a carbon sink.
there's a mechanism whereby, when a dam is drained, the sediment continues to emit greenhouse gases, but the ratio of carbon dioxide to methane changes dramatically. So, and methane is 8 times more warming than carbon dioxide. So, as time goes by, to begin with, the sediment is still emitting significant amounts of carbon dioxide, very little methane. But as the vegetation establishes, and in some of the things I've read, it can take as long as 50 years. I don't think it would be that long here, but at that point, then it becomes a net carbon sink. And you can't predict exactly when that would be. But certainly it's a net carbon emitter when you first drain, except that you change the nature of the gases. So it's
Is
less.
that
of
right,
a
Liz? I mean, is that,
polluter.
we don't want to speak for you.
no, I mean, that's my general.
I think my point
Yeah.
is not, I feel this is true, but I mean, in terms of a net benefit, greenhouse gases, big picture, this is a marginal benefit. I'd be happy if you just add the word marginal somewhere in here, because let's not, this doesn't solve a big greenhouse gas problem. It's a marginal.
Yeah, I think that's
Doesn't
fair.
solve any problem. You're right, it's minuscule
Yes,
Yeah,
in the larger.
I mean, it's really not, this discussion is of marginal value. So, and I'm responsible for it. So, but-
Except if everybody recycles, then something
Yeah.
I recycle on my
That's
own.
true, that's true.
Yeah, if you ignore things because you think it's too small, then everyone's gonna ignore it, right? So you have to, if it's a marginal benefit, sure, but if it's a marginal benefit, you have to.
That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think adding,
My
like,
point's been
obviously
made. My
it's-
point's made.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. Dave.
I have a question too. This is on page 22 as well. I'm a trout fisherman, fly fisherman, and the notion that there are brook trout in that area is hard to believe. Are you really sure that there are brook trout upstream, native brook trout upstream, and they're gonna work their way down to the Assabet, which is, I've never seen them there unless they've been stocked, or into, in the Neshoba?
I've caught 2 brook trout in the Assabet.
In the Assabet,
Yeah,
were they stocked?
no, they
No.
don't stock brook trout.
Just the
They
brown?
stock rainbows and browns.
That's amazing, because I've never seen them. I've just, okay, all
So I
right.
think there's been a lot of conversation about cold water species, cool water species.
Yeah.
What does the temperature data show? Will restoration of the stream in the end make a difference? Because it's not cold water.
No, it's not really cold water.
It's not
stream.
below 20 degrees C, whatever. At summertime. And the thinking there, I think in some ways, if we've included cold water species in here, that's an error because we intended to talk about cooler water in the species at times of year. that
Okay,
Would make use of cooler water.
okay,
I think if the cold water species are, tend to be found in those cold water tributaries, there certainly will be times of year, without a dam, where they'd be interested in moving around the neighborhood. Just saw a picture of a black bear in West Concord from this fall, so we all know these species.
oh, they definitely will.
They head out in different directions, not to say a bear is a brook trout, but you know what I mean.
Well, here's a question,
And
and I,
so just from a genetic diversity and sort of river system health of
Yeah.
the population, there will be a new capability of these species to range
Okay.
throughout the watershed.
And that is something Ben Weatherall said specifically in his
Okay.
presentation.
This
Okay.
also was discussed by Stephen Maddox in his presentation of Fish and Wildlife.
But I know that he also said in his presentation, the OR's presentation, he said that Neshoba Brook is not considered a cold water.
No, it's not.
It's not.
That's right.
There are
I
2
wanna-
tributaries that
So
are
if cold
cold.
is in here, they want to make sure,
I don't want
We said-
cold
we
water,
said that
I don't
in
want
our
cold water
proposal.
habitat
okay,
to be a straw man. because
Right.
got it,
It's like,
got
you're
it.
saying cold water, it's not gonna be cold.
Right,
water. We're
right.
not saying we're creating cold water.
Okay.
habitat. We're
Right.
creating passage for species that would use that to move about at times of year when the water temperature is suitable for them to move up and down.
Okay.
so on that,
So-
so on that page, is there concern anywhere, like there is the word cold water species is mentioned, but it's not.
Mhm.
I was looking at the footnotes,
Okay,
and I'm not saying anything, I don't
What it
know,
says right there.
Right, that live in upstream cribs.
yeah. Right, it doesn't,
So,
doesn't call them into Morris Pond. It calls
Right,
them-
and that's accurate.
Right.
it says upstream tributaries of Neshoba Brook.
Right.
There are no cold water species in the Assabet River.
Malcolm just said.
Well, there
He just
are.
caught them.
I mean,
Well, how long ago did you catch
And
this?
Maddox is.
2 years ago. They migrate down from the cold water areas. In the summer, they all go right up to the headwaters.
Yeah.
But in cooler weather, they come down.
Well, there's a lot of people who fish around here who don't really consider the Assabet River a trout fishery, so, I mean, there's
Well,
probably
maybe I'm
something that needs to
exceptional.
be
I'm
a
just one
little
of the best
more
fishermen
debated.
around.
You certainly are. You certainly are. I wonder where they're coming from, Malcolm, because they wouldn't be coming from the Neshoba Brook, they'd be coming from someplace
They're
else.
coming from a-
Yeah, I'm wondering, there must be some other tributaries up the Assabet somewhere, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Tributaries
if you look
to
at the
Neshoba,
maps.
I think is the,
No, they couldn't get past the dam.
oh, how they're getting to, that's a good question.
So they'd have to be,
There is a map, and I think it's the DER,
okay,
map that shows where you have.
Yeah.
Mapped cold water fisheries, they don't
Okay.
include the Assabet, but.
But I think what you had sent showed that none of them connect to the Assabet where we are.
Not from here, no. But
not-
there's one other cold water fishery here in Concord,
They
which
didn't show
feeds
that on-
directly into, not on the Neshoba Brook.
no, it's on the Assabet, I think I know where you
In
mean.
this town.
Anywhere in Concord, it didn't
Yes,
show it
there
on the
is.
map. On the
It's
map?
it's on the map.
Oh, I didn't see it on the map.
Yeah.
The
That's
whole,
absolutely
is this the
I
Kennedy?
didn't
Pond
either.
area?
I can't remember that. What do you, it's the one that
I
comes
didn't
through.
see it on there.
Kennedy's Pond. that's-
Second Division Brook?
I know years
Second
ago,
Division Brook.
yeah, years ago, Second Division Brook had been, I'm not sure it is anymore, is it, you know?
It's currently on the state's
Maps.
map of cold water fisheries.
Okay, can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
I guess I don't understand. It says, however, cold water species that live in upstream tributaries of Neshoba Brook are cut off from populations. in the Assabet River by the dam. Where would that be?
So I'm looking at the GIS, I'm happy to turn it
Wanna share?
around here, but just upstream of Route 2, just between Route 2 and 2A, there's a stream that appears to be unnamed that comes off near, is that near Teamworks over there?
Do you wanna share this? I'll-
So isn't that Fort Pond or?
It comes off of Neshoba Brook above Route 2, sort of
Somebody
above.
said it used to be called Church Brook. I don't
It goes
know
up
whether
into the
that's
Nurse
right.
Neck Conservation Area.
Yeah.
You're talking about the Baptist Brook?
Can we,
There's a name.
this is so.
Okay,
I
it's
know.
one of the things that can be looked at.
Yeah, any further information, okay.
Sure, yeah, okay. Back to.
We need to talk more about that, the fisheries there.
Okay, fisheries is going to the small group.
Yes.
Are we therefore second guessing the state on this? I mean.
No,
I
put it in
think we're trying to
the-
clarify the discussion.
We're talking about language, not
Right.
necessarily the fact, we're talking about. the
Right,
language.
right.
It would be based in facts. The jump is there.
Yours, yes.
It's one tributary. It
So-
says tributaries, so that's significant.
So we just want to clarify,
Show them
okay?
up.
Well, let's move
Yes.
on.
Move on.
Look at the
Let's
map.
move on.
Next topic.
All right, move on.
I got a next topic.
Okay,
All right.
David.
Okay,
Jeff,
so,
you were just
and
describing one
this
page.
again,
Also
maybe
up to
just
take
small,
off.
it's right, starting under rationale in that.
What page, David?
21,
21.
first page of the removal.
Yeah,
So just
Uh,
one
You need
conversation.
to list
Yes,
them.
please.
Yeah, we'll do that later, Keith.
All right, go ahead. All right, go ahead, David.
okay, the first sentences of the first two paragraphs there referring to restoring natural environment and restoring pre-17th century ecological conditions. There's no going back, just as we heard tonight, we have new invasive species that exist. It's going to be different, but I mean, certainly what's described here in terms of pre-17th century conditions with indigenous traditions with spring herring run and eel fishery won't happen until the dams upstream on the Concord River get removed. So just us doing this is
Yeah.
not going to do it. So I just don't think we're gonna
I think
restore the natural environment or
I think a
pre-17th
footnote
century.
got removed somewhere because there's a specific footnote saying it's contingent on the removal of the Talbot.
But we can add it to the sentence.
Yeah.
We can say exactly
Yeah,
contingent
it's not-
on the
it's not a
removal of the Talbot dam.
And we had a long discussion about, clearly, we are not going to recreate the exact conditions that there were pre-17th century.
But that's what I think all this
Sentence was
restoration
It
would give
infers
people.
that.
It's restoration is.
Is
that word.
that the part that's
Right.
more
Yeah.
of a concern to you?
Yeah.
Is that,
Right.
okay,
Okay,
Yeah, I think a large
yeah.
body of the public would say, oh, restore means
Yeah.
get it back the
Yeah.
way it was.
Right.
I just sort of a question that I guess is to our subgroup. I think, didn't at some point we talk about the idea of restoring like a riverine environment? Like, would that be a
Yes.
better way of saying
Yes,
it? Not
Yeah,
saying,
definitely.
Yeah, I'd take it as the 17th century.
Yeah,
Right.
like, well, for like restoring the natural environment, I think at
Yeah.
one point we talked about saying like restoration of a riverine environment, so we were
Sure.
kind of more capturing the fact that it's
Yeah.
a. When you call it a restoration project, yeah, obviously it's not gonna be the same, but.
Right, it's
We're
not.
kind of going back to that. Okay,
Okay, so we take
I
out
think
that,
we may have missed this occurrence because I'm sure we changed it elsewhere.
It's a great flourish, but I think it's.
It
Restore the
Oh, I'm
17th century.
actually, I'm kind of excited about that. I've been
Yeah,
reading
yeah.
about how eels all breed out in the middle of the Atlantic. How about that?
Paul, you had a comment? Oh, you both raised your hand at the same
Can
time.
I,
Oh, I'm
I have
sorry.
one more that
Oh,
goes
go
with
ahead.
this.
I'm on the next page.
Okay.
And
He's back up.
And just, have we done or will we be doing kind of a comparison of what are the species we're expecting with and without dam removal, like in a table, format to be it for people all to see is that, okay,
So like
We're-
now versus with, dredging versus with.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
we do have that.
versus with dam- We should do that.
Yeah,
We do that. We had attached to our long proposal, which maybe all of you read.
Of course.
Insomnia treatment. And we can attach or we could summarize these natural community fact sheets from the Natural Heritage Program that have common species. Those are plant species primarily. In the watershed report from 2012, there's a list of fish species in the pond. And we can, I'm not a fish guy, but we could.
Cause I'm not convinced it's gonna be so much more wildlife
Mhm.
than there is now. And I am willing to believe it's gonna change, but I've seen how, what is it called down here? Great Meadows has just been ravaged by invasives. And no
that's-
longer an open body of water,
That's another artificial system. Artificial systems are hard to manage.
And I think the question about adding this additional information is to give some thought. If the information already exists in another document that people can just be linked to, then that might be a better way than like repeating.
And my
more
only concern is
information.
there's certain things where it's like, it would be real, I mean, at least I know, and like, I would insist on my product managers, like, I want a table with a comparison of the matrix
Which we don't have right now.
comparison.
Right, and I
Now
don't-
we've got separate
I don't know, if
proposals.
reducing that is going to result in more disagreement about how accurate it is.
Well-
That's what I'm cautioning.
Well, I would think you'd be able to easily, relative, I mean, you're saying this already. I think, Jeff, that there is a table. You have the fish species that would benefit, right?
For each scenario?
But we know what's there today.
For
There is a
them, for
list
that.
in the
I don't know about the other scenarios. That's true. Like, for example, ours or the dredging group. I don't know if we know, if you,
Yeah,
well,
we
if we-
didn't delve- we didn't delve. deep
no,
into it.
no, we pushed it off to talk about a fish passage, you know?
I think the change would be that you would see, some of these,
Herring.
the herring species coming in that you
Yeah.
would not have under the, short-term action or the dredging.
Could
Just
be,
wouldn't have
yeah.
the conditions.
Yeah.
That would allow, so I think it would just be that, just, the bluebacks and the. I think there's 5 species that, and there is in the 2012 management plan, as Jeff said, there's a list of what fisheries were encountered at that time.
Mhm,
Blueback,
sure.
alewife, shad, American
lamprey,
eel and
yeah.
sea lamprey.
And then the principle that we were trying to capture with table 1 here, the approximate extents of existing potential post-construction ecological communities. Is that under the dam removal scenario, as shown in that table, we have greater diversity and size of different community types, different plant community types. And so each of those hosts a slightly different mix of plant species. That's what those fact sheets can describe, and we could tease out those species, we could put those into some table
Yeah.
format. That wouldn't be comprehensive, but those would be the common species of those habitat types. Again, plants only, and no, they include some animals too.
So
And
where
then
does
more community diversity, each of them having their own diversity of plants, invertebrates.
But that's, I guess, what I'm concerned about, like, when I look at, like, Great Meadows, is will we actually get that diversity, or, what is our, because I don't see within the ecological community noted here is, what do we think the invasive species could be? I don't see a line item for that, and I know,
There is a
It
line
will.
item because we talk about a management plan.
no, I'm just saying in that table.
Well, I think the other thing to think about is Great Meadows it's an impounded system. And the invasives that are they have terrestrial invasives as well as aquatic invasives. But those aquatic invasives are the one that are the most challenging. From a water quality is,
Right.
and a management perspective as well, which I think, well, I'll just leave it at that.
Are we talking about fish or have we moved on to invasive plants?
I want to talk about table 1.
Keith has had his hand up for a while. Go ahead.
No, I just comment about fish. So I do have a paper like gladly share that actually someone studied the effects of beaver dams on migratory fish and the effects they actually do have on them. So, I mean, there is a new pretty significant beaver dam on Neshoba Brook right now. So I just think that's kind of not always the case in these streams. We're talking about restoring, removing dams, but the beavers here are actually pretty significant. I think it just needs to be addressed and commented on.
Yeah.
And I can share this paper with you where they studied this, where fish might get over it in high flows. If they want to go back out, they get trapped.
So we have already agreed that the fish issue is going to go to the small group.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So this would be encompassed in that.
Yeah.
Small group.
I would request that group does go back to Steve Matticks's presentation,
Sure.
because he does address that specifically.
Okay.
So we started talking about table one, just an editorial comment on table one. Says under this proposal, certain habitats would be expanded, others would be reduced. I think be more specific, I think you need to say open water habitats reduced, the other habitats would be increased, okay. Second point, I think this proposal, maybe others need qualifying statements as opposed to absolute statements. When this is projected to result in a net increase in biodiversity. To hammer out the uncertainties in here, I think possibly, likely, you need to have a qualifying statement. We just don't know some of this, and I think you need to qualify some of these absolute statements.
One of the ways to do that is to simply say, the EA report says blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's taking the responsibility and putting it on the actual source rather than making it sound like it's coming out of the mouth of the task force, right? If EA projects blah, blah, blah.
You could also,
Well,
you could also reference the Wetlands Protection Act, which notes the high value to wildlife habitat for bordering vegetated wetlands, highest of all the wetland resource areas.
The other thing that I'm thinking about what Peter was talking about earlier, and sort of the creation of the marsh habitats. There's no there's no downside to this proposal. This could create, we don't know what kind of vegetation it's going to create, what kind of invasives this could create. It all sounds very good, and that may be the case, but there's no hedging on here. There's no balance in here, because this could result, and people think in invasive species. This is all beneficial. I think you need to have some again, qualifying statements or, in terms of potential Phragmites development and other invasive development.
But it is part of the proposal.
What?
That is part of the proposal.
What is?
That Phragmites are a possibility and we need to budget to prevent them becoming.
Where's the state?
It doesn't say it here, but it is part of the proposal if you read the proposal.
But maybe we should, this is what we're.
So this is sort of rationale, and this is all good. I think you need to, we just don't know on the vegetation, what this is gonna create.
So what Paul's suggesting, I think,
And
is
I
that,
think it needs some balance, that's all I'm saying.
yeah, I think that
These proposals can't be so absolute because of all the uncertainty we're dealing with.
so in Malcolm's point, I think, and Paul's, right, Malcolm says it is in their longer proposal, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't remember that either.
Oh, it's in
So-
the document.
It's in this one too.
Oh,
Oh, it's in this one as well.
At a
Okay,
different-
good.
at a different
Essential component
location.
would be a-
Where is it? All right, later on.
Later on,
I
I guess,
guess
yeah.
my question is, you're saying it's projected to be a net increase in biodiversity, but yet really it's just a shifting of the quantities. It's almost basically the same, but you're saying you're going from 42% open water to now you're going to like 9%, 10% open water.
Right.
And there's already and in the dredging proposal, there is the shallow emergent marsh that's being built. So we would have that in there. So I guess I guess I don't understand how you could say there would be a net increase in biodiversity.
I think open water is lower diversity for plants. Some of the shallow water has rooted vegetation, emergent and floating vegetation, a lot of it non-native. It doesn't provide much habitat value to other species.
Thanks, yeah.
And these
Find it.
vegetated communities would have a higher diversity of native plant species. And those would all attract and provide habitat for a wide range of invertebrate species, nesting birds on those square feet rather than, birds do use the open water for shelter and safety and feeding, et cetera, and other activities, but they're not nesting in the water, right? They need to get up on the.
So what happens to the biodiversity that's there now? What happens to some of the wildlife that's there now when there's
Which one?
hardly any open water left?
That area of shallow water that's populated by non-native. Those in-water species would be reduced. It would be on the edge of the deep pool. And yeah, as it says in that table, as we indicate, that habitat type and the species that it offers habitat to would be relatively reduced.
And so I
Is there
guess,
a language
so I guess the question becomes, are we deciding which is better and which is worse?
Yes, native species are better than all the non-native species.
Well, I
in the
mean,
water
that's
that we're trying
clear,
to
but we're
protect.
saying,
I'd just like to say, so for biodiversity, I think you should really look at that at like a landscape scale. So like what we're getting with new riparian forest or shrub, like Concord has a lot of that right now. There actually is less open water habitat where osprey and bald eagles and pied-billed grebes are spotted routinely. So I think that needs to be kind of, I guess, qualified further. I think, yes, there is a change, but like a town-wide assessment, biodiversity, like things are pretty good for bordering vegetated wetlands in Concord. I mean, they're so protected in general. I mean, we actually need to keep the open water habitat as a diverse thing for animals to migrate through that actually benefit tremendously from right now.
Is there a language change that would address this in the document?
I would let them work it out.
I just
Well,
want to
it's
get
going
back
the-
to
it's going to the
this
subgroup.
marginal thing. I mean, there is a massive deficiency of wetlands in the country. So just saying that Concord has plenty of them doesn't address the issue. So at all, I mean, just because Concord has a good bit of wetlands doesn't address the shortage of wetlands.
Which will go up 6% here,
Yeah. No,
Warner's,
from 6 to 13,
but ponds are considered a wetland.
2.1 to
now.
13.2.
I think
there's a serious forest, yeah. But
It's
when
kind of
thinking
an interesting-
wetlands, marshes and swamps are all.
This
I'll-
is,
I'll wait.
this
Right.
is starting to lead into
Yeah,
a data
yeah.
fight.
Get out of the weeds.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think
Good
These are
fun.
like multiple conversations, so.
I'm just gonna
Sorry.
make a comment that I think that what Keith was just alluding to is an interesting level of lens to put over a lot of this, which is under what's the boundary of the area of influence of something that we're talking about? Because we do tend to shift scopes from the actual parcel of the pond itself to the whole river system to, you know, it is kind of interesting to consider whether or not Concord overall, you know, benefits from more open water versus more wetlands, and it's not a lens I've thought about, but. I
Open
think-
water is a wetland, just to
Yeah,
clarify.
Yeah.
but I mean, from a larger component of open water wetlands than
Open
other
water is a
wetlands.
classification.
And so when, you know, what increases,
State regs.
what increases diversity in this, within this 42 or, you know, 60 acres of land, you know, is that actually a net increase overall across town, or is that a decrease? It's just, it's something that never occurred to me to wonder about.
I would say,
Yeah.
why not
Why?
move this issue about wildlife to the small group and let them try hard to come up with some common,
Yeah.
either language or differences that we all can say, okay, this is different.
This is
I
habitat
agree.
diversity, right? This is
agree.
the,
All right?
Chris, this is the issue that you're raising, that
Right.
is going to the small group.
Yes.
Okay, we're going to the small group for this, we're not gonna come back to this. We're
Okay,
moving
another
on.
thing.
Go ahead.
I have another one on page 21. I just, I'm sorry, I had my hand up for a little while. This thing estimated by EA to be between 500,000 and $1 million over the next 50 years. It's different in each of the proposals. I just want to bring them all in line with these numbers,
Right.
what they say. So I'm just calling it out as somehow CBI, we need to bring all the proposals in line with
Tell
that.
me where,
The very last
oh, and the
sentence.
sentence about
rationale.
estimated by.
Yeah, so it says
Right.
estimated by EA between 500 and $1 million over 50 years. Every proposal has a different way of saying that, and the numbers come out slightly different if you multiply
Right, I
it by
think
50.
the
So
other
put in
two
11,000.
proposals,
Clarify it,
right,
please.
did an annual.
And that is,
And I
but they're
think
different
CBI's
numbers.
And it was
I think
based on
CBI's suggestion
Yeah,
was
we had a
to
suggestion.
cite
Get
both.
them all the same.
We had,
EA
the
views
language
the
should be the same.
11,000.
yeah, I think we
Yeah.
made an attempt and I don't remember what it.
But the
reason
language
is
should be the
what-
same.
Of course, I agree.
Yeah.
All right,
There are some things that should be the same.
So it should be
There are other
annual
Things that aren't.
annual or
And annualized.
annualized, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
And today's dollars, please.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Especially when
Yeah.
talk
Oh,
about.
We took it, we
Well,
took
the
it from the PAR
report is from
report,
last
which was
year. Okay.
most recent.
Yeah, but it's always today's dollars.
We should also
Right. I
point
think we're
out
doing
in
the best we
response
can
to
as
a
far as
community
that
question, that number does not include the cost of dam inspections. So going from 5-year inspections to 10-year inspections will not affect that number. It's explicit in the.
But we'll
All
come back
right,
to that.
try to find a common number, that's all, for annualized, okay?
I actually wanted to respond to something Paul had said about the rationale being very positive, and I feel like it's a product like that across the, all the proposals, like the
Yes.
rationale is meant to be positive, it's why we're doing it.
Yeah.
So I just want to push, I just didn't want that left, like, oh, ours is too positive and everyone else is.
No, we're all,
I just wanna make sure that
we're all
we're-
being advocates for
Okay,
our,
I just
for our
want to-
position.
it's not like
Yeah.
we're presenting too rosy of a picture versus everyone else, like, I think as long as we're all sort of the same across rationale, but I just didn't wanna leave
Can
it.
we move on? What do you say?
Yeah.
How about anything on 23,
Can we look at table 2?
table 2? Table
Which
2.
page are you on?
What page is that?
I don't know.
Well, how about Keith, before we do, just as I'm passing through it, is there anything on the figure 1 that we need to look at, or we keep on going?
Figure 1 is the map.
Yeah. Not a big deal. I mean, we can argue about whether that, you can do all that, but
This is just on the list of things we might pull up in common to front matter.
yeah,
Almost everyone talks about the Giroux access points,
Yes.
Commonwealth Ave
Correct.
improvements. We have a dot down at the current dam location, but that could be at Pond Street, and in the report, we intended to say like,
Yeah.
people can discuss where that should go.
Right.
Maybe if there's a commonality across
that's a good point.
proposals, like.
That's a good point.
Goes up to the
Yeah.
top.
And they actually do look good, the fishing, wildlife viewing, and the Giroux property.
We don't need to make
Access.
decisions on final
No.
location, but in terms of like costs, those should be consistent.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
good
not
point.
necessarily like have to be pulled out of each proposal, but
No.
at least like costing should be consistent and terminology.
Absolutely.
I
In
agree.
fact, I saw a big discrepancy between what one of the groups had for their Commonwealth Avenue entrance and the other group. And I think our group was the one that had it so high. I mean, we were just, we were just blue sky.
You were escalating.
We were hitting it like, at first I think we put down 500,000. I mean, I didn't, where did we know? Then I saw some of the others, that's 15th. I thought, okay, we can really bring that back down.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. That's good. All right, now we're moving right towards Keith's. Oh,
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were doing this.
no.
Page by page, we'll
We
probably get to it.
sort of
Yeah, we should
are,
do
and
page by
sometimes.
page.
Oh, maybe
Page
page by page, okay.
Are there any other comments on the way that will, as we'll pass through?
So why don't I just scroll to the table 2? And if you see things on the screen that you have concerns about,
I would say that in Joseph Gould's presentation, he was asked specifically, what are the negatives about dam removal? And he said, there are no downsides to dam removal. He may be wrong, but that was his statement. So I think it's not necessarily being overly positive.
Well, we've identified some downsides, which is we made up for with recreational additions. So we have a downside that we've already identified.
Right.
I have a question. So
That's
Keith,
not quite what I meant.
well, that's what's a footnote, if you ask me. Keith, were you talking about figure 2 or were you talking about
There's a
table?
table 2, there's a lot of
The
costs.
budget?
Yeah, but before you do, can we look on the way, can we look at the figure 2, the channel?
Yeah.
page 26.
Now, I think what I saw when I read it, your report, is you would make this happen through channelization, right? You're gonna dig out some sections to make it go this way?
Yeah, others jump in here. So figure 2 was produced by the color image there was produced by EA. I don't believe this is in the 30% basis of the design, but it was in an email to you, or did they put it in
No,
the
it's
basis of
in
the?
the.
It's
Okay.
in 30%.
So that is their estimate or model of where the channel
Is it?
naturally formed. And that's the red line, and they say in their text, based on eyeballing the bathymetry and that dog leg over near Scout Island, the east of Scout Island, that's, I don't know, it must be based on their thinking of how water functions when it's coming around a corner like that. Not really sure, but that's EA's estimate of how the channel would would settle if we just take away the dam and don't adjust the channel at all. But we really want to have it swing over close to the P to the common parking access or the common public access. And so that's one area that we say in uncertainty or more information needed is what is the feasibility approach cost of making that happen. And the other point that looks more suitable to us and want to get David's input or immediate thought is proximity to Scout Island on the northwest side.
So it looks like it would. I mean, it looks like the distance you'd have to go from the parking lot to Scout Island is maybe 5x what
We
it
currently
is today.
Yeah.
And depending on how wide that channel is, because I know the troop has started to use rowboat as well as canoes. Take kind of less seaworthy folks over. So ensuring that, I would love to get the scouts input on that, because I mean, that is quite a bit bigger distance than it is today.
So back to the question of dredging, and again, others jump in here, but yeah, that's the intention, is to somehow manipulate that channel over near Comm Ave. So that it.
Yeah.
it
Well,
swings,
And one of
maybe
your,
we can put a
I could be wrong about this, Jeff, and your other members of the committee, but one of the previous drawings, I thought it had the channel, this was not from EA. I thought you swung it close to the north end of Scout Island so that the scouts could get in near the parking lot on Commonwealth Avenue, swing around and have a landing on the island.
That's what is shown in right here with the line coming close to the northwest side of Scout Island.
I don't see that. Am I wrong?
But we need to hit Scout Island. and then-
No, it's far away.
Just point to what the current landing spot is.
Oh, I see. You're right. Sorry, I didn't see it that far down.
This, the current landing is just straight over here.
Yeah, so I
And
see.
This is so dense with vegetation, landing here really isn't realistic. Landing over here is realistic,
Okay,
I mean, cause sometimes people go around and land on that. So
I didn't actually notice that. You're right. That's good. Okay.
I guess another question would be, how would that meet your needs depending on the time of year? Is the water gonna be flowing to accommodate your
It's
canoes
the
or
big
not?
use for the ceremony is the spring. And then it's occasional camping by other areas. It's just, you were there, it's a massive movement of
Right.
people over, and like I say, is that if we're having to go, you know, all the way around here in rowboats and canoes to get there versus straight across.
Cause you were going back
5X.
and forth.
No, that's what this would mean. This is giving you a stream to the other side.
I understand, but that's about 5 times the distance that
Correct.
it's
Yeah.
taking today.
Correct.
And we're bringing over parents and younger siblings and
Supplies.
all.
So Mark has a comment.
Whenever I look at this, I understand that where the channel is. I always wanna understand a little bit more about what the sort of, I'm gonna call them topological lines in there mean. Does that in the sort of lightest blue area that tends to border the shore, does that mean there's, 0 to 3 inches of water there and then the next sort of section is, so it would really be helpful if we had some sort of legend that described that, in a way that would make it.
So what about, I mean, if you
Yeah.
provide that,
But
yeah.
I don't know how
It's
to
a
read that.
graphic.
Yeah.
That does, I mean, it shows ecological communities, which
Yeah.
are tied to
That-
depth.
These are 1 foot contour lines.
Yeah, but didn't
Okay.
EA provide a key on that blue? on the blue?
So,
Um,
yeah, that would just
I
be
don't
so
remember.
helpful. So
It's not
So
here.
you could
Yeah.
expect, and I guess one of my recreation, connections to this is skating. So, we're happy to skate on 6 inches of frozen water. That's wonderful. So it doesn't look like that big of a change to me. And that's, so I'm trying to, put a different sort of recreational lens on it. And-
But for clarity, and so this
Yeah.
graphic does need clarity, this is showing current bathymetry
Yeah,
and then sort of we're surmising where the channel will rest, skipping through those deep parcels. So if we're gonna lose, what is it, 4 feet, 5 feet of depth?
Yeah.
Would you lose with dam removal? Those first 5. What?
Disappear altogether.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it says, the report says in terms of the channel and the cross section that's in there, which is also hard to read. Is trying to interpret this text that PA sent saying that this would be, what's shown in the cross section chart is. Sort of just subtracting 5 feet from current bathymetry. But you would expect 2 to 4 feet of incision of the water eroding into those existing sediments. Either initially over the initial weeks and months, and then when we have our first sort of, biennial flood. You'd begin to clear out that section. One other comment, because it's come up in past conversations, is, that EA report also said that the damming effect of the Warner's Pond Dam does not extend upstream of Warner's Pond into the Neshoba Brook Channel. And that their analog for the stream channel through this area that they would expect would be Neshoba Brook above Warner's Pond. And they give an estimate of, I don't know, 25 to 40 feet wide and 4 to 7 feet deep. We all know there's dry period. We all know we have droughts, but that is the analog that they suggested would evolve in that.
I suggested the analog would be the downstream. Cause that accounts for Fort Pond Brook and the Neshoba Brook. Why would that not be the reasonable width to expect?
Yeah, that's the comment you made before, and it seems reasonable, right? Cause it's the same amount of water coming through. That's their assertion.
Right, so, I mean, if we're gonna maybe use the downstream width as an example, it's quite shallow there, actually, so I'm just wondering why we're talking about needing a boat to get to Scout Island at all. It seems like you just need to put on some boots and waders, and then that's how you get there, and then if it's like springtime, the flows are gonna be at times very extreme. You don't wanna be crossing in a rowboat. So just something that probably, I just think it would be good to explore that and discuss that as part of the proposal.
Yeah,
Instead of like promising there's gonna be year-round boat access.
Either that or it goes into uncertainty because there just may not be able to get uncertainty. It's right, we're looking into the future and with models about what might happen. EA can do
Well,
best at it.
to a certain point, but I mean, at some point, I think we can really understand what's actually gonna be happening there. There's some like promises being made that I think you're not gonna be able to produce.
And what I'm saying, Keith, is I agree with you. If this is being read as promises are being made, I don't think
They don't
you
promise.
can do that
Yeah.
without.
There is a lot of certainty in the way it's written.
So so this is where I'm suggesting a language changes to try to address
Okay.
knowns and unknowns and uncertainties.
This is a small matter, but it's hiding a little bit, and you guys may have already addressed this, and maybe that's what the red line means, but I saw it back in the ESS reports, I just pulled it up as I had it in there. The water flow, they say, maybe it's different after the dam comes down, goes between the two islands.
Right.
So that would change after the dam comes down?
So
Good. I don't
So, EA did address that and there was a difference in the ESS report. I think it was the watershed management plan,
Yes, that's right, Delia. It
right, that
was, yeah.
showed a different flow and to what EA has shown in their alternatives analysis and sort of carried forward, and that is based on the bathymetry of the pond. And I think there was less bathymetry that had been done at the 2012. There was less bathymetry, and I don't recall what they used in that, but that was the reasoning that EA had for
Okay.
developing a different channel, and that's actually, if you look on near maps. That is what shows, that this outline is what shows. You can see the channel,
Oh, okay,
in, like late summer when
yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
yeah.
thickly vegetated, the channel is clear. And it
Mhm.
follows that path.
So we can emphasize the certain uncertainties. I'm happy to work on that language. I think the whole group is, we do have a bullet late in the proposal about uncertainties, saying predicting risks and uncertainties, predicting the exact courses, uncertain, et cetera, et cetera.
Maybe
But
at some point we change some of the ensure language, we do say ensure passage, ensure So maybe we just look at that kind of
Mhm.
language and tone.
Sure.
The sureties.
I think CBI has also addressed this, so we can offer suggestions to you. So it's sounding to me that this is an issue that the work group thinks you can navigate with maybe some help from us and from the task force in general, and this does not have to go to the small group. Am I?
No, I think you might do a small group, because it also includes the issues about, well,
Oh,
the width of the
Right.
width and the depth of the.
task force, I mean, the work group might want to handle some of it first, or,
Yeah, I mean, I do want to reflect on when we had questions as a big group, and we said, let's engage a consultant in
Yeah.
helping us answer some of those questions, and then we get a report. And we say, no, we still have questions about that.
well, this is
What do we do?
where, so
Yeah, it's a good question.
so the suggestion that we have, that we would offer is that exactly in those situations, one way to address it is to simply throw it onto the consultant, so that the language in the document says, EA has provided this information that says X. Then there's a place for the task force to offer its take. It can be in that section, or it can be in uncertainties, where the task force says under uncertainties, the task force is uncertain about the validity of the information that was produced in this particular area. It is unknown. It can be, the task force has no opinion about this. It can be, the task force has doubt about the information. You can, say it in any way, but there's, like, this is a very, acceptable way to first put it into the document with the correct, who said it, where it came from. They're an engineering firm. This is what they said, and we're just presenting you to the public with what was said. And then at some place in the proposal, the task force either opines or says nothing. And it's hung out, it's just there. EA says this. Because if the editing goes well and the revisions go well on this, all of the proposals will be set in a way where the task force is not making promises or ensuring anything or painting a picture that, they can't deliver. And so there will be that kind of level, approach in all of the documents. These are accepted ways of handling this. There's a whole range. There's the nuclear option, which, that I call the nuclear option, which is to simply not present the information, or to present the information and say the task force was not able to arrive at a consensus about whether this is correct. So there's a lot of ways, a lot of shades to do this. And I'm looking at your faces and not sure that you buy any of this, but
No, I don't buy in
That's my
not presenting it. I think that's.
well, not presenting it, but you're right. But that task forces have done that. They've said,
Sure.
we just totally don't like this information and we don't even want to talk about it. And that's happened.
You know,
I have a
Mark and
suggestion.
then Paul.
Yeah, so in the spirit of trying to propose some language that, anybody can live with. It strikes me that it's logical to assume that the geometry and nature of the channel would look a lot like what flows behind the Shobrook Bakery, in Brookside Square, in that area between Commonwealth, because that's the same amount of water moving through the same, after it's been through that system. And so I would at least like to, if we decide to seek outside expertise, I'd like to make sure that they at least consider characterizing it that way, because that's something that people can go to and look at and say, I crossed that 2 or 3 times in the last day or two, and I saw the ducks happily playing in the 8 or 10 inches of water that was freely flowing there, and thought to myself, that's kind of what it would look like.
I would push back a little bit on you about that, Mark, because it's not so much what people will be able to see if they went out in the field. It's, does the task force
Right.
feel that is accurate, and
Yeah.
that you can all be comfortable with the statement?
Right, so I'm putting it out there, I'm asking that question of, is that one way to potentially define what this channel might look like that people could understand? Because it seems to me that what flows over the dam is what's gonna flow through the system.
For reasons that I don't understand, EA says that the rest of the channel will not look like that. And it gives specific reasons, but I can't find it in here.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I am too. That's a
Paul
good
had
question.
had a question.
I'm just reflecting on the conversation.
Not a
I think-
hydrologist.
I think these sections on uncertainties is really important. And whether it's uncertain with the information that EA gives us, or just uncertainty assumptions, I think that's the transparency of these proposals is really important. But I think eventually it's all gonna come down to us. So when you started the conversation, can we live with this? Part of that, can we live with the uncertainty? And it's not just the outcome, can we
Right.
live with the relevant uncertainty? You know, we may like the proposal, but boy, the uncertainty is so high, we have no confidence in that. So having the uncertainties articulated is very, very, very helpful to me and to us as a deliberative body, in kind of coming to this final deliberations.
Yeah, it's a really good observation and in the way that the proposals can help at the deliberative stage. They aren't the deliberation, but the information in them can really help you form your opinions about what your recommendations might ultimately be.
I have a question
ahead,
on
Vicky. Yeah.
that, because that's an interesting insight, because if I go through and I say, dredging will remove sediment for 100 years. And then I put the uncertainty is whether dredging will last for 100 years, like 3 pages later. Should it be separated like that, or should the uncertainty be part of the discussion when you're talking about that item? Like, if we don't know where the channel is, when you're talking about the channel and its location, should you put that it's an uncertainty and write in there? Or should you wait for 3 pages later and put that it's an
I've
uncertainty?
done a
What
lot
you
of
just said was gonna
yeah,
happen
I've
is an
done a lot of
uncertainty.
proposal writing. I think you put your best assumption in the proposal.
Okay,
And
And
then
then
you
put your
defer
uncertainty
to the
later.
uncertainties. You don't kind of hit each uncertainty. Best judgment. This is what we think right now. However, look at the uncertainties.
Yeah, it's easier for the reader also,
Is
because
it?
they can just go and be like, let me
this
just
is
see
the
what's
proposal.
uncertain.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, good.
all right.
Can I ask
Move
a
on.
question?
Yeah.
When we talk about uncertainty, we need to be able in some way to define the level of uncertainty. I mean, I'm sorry. If we say it's uncertain, do we
I'm not-
mean that it's improbable,
Mhm.
impossible, or whatever? So is it a 90% probability that this will happen, or is it a 10%?
It's a really good point, Malcolm, and you know, CBI hasn't taken a position one way or the other. We put the category under uncertainties and risks. And we've let the text speak
Right.
for itself, where, and it can range from. There's a question about this particular thing. We weren't able to get information on this specific fact to. There have been questions raised about this information by members of the task force, or the task force was unable to agree. It runs the whole gamut, but I don't think there's anything in it that says we're really uncertain versus we're just a little uncertain.
I look at uncertainties a slightly different way, and there are uncertainties that are really important and impactful. And then, we'll have uncertainties and they'll have all sorts of impact on the final decision. So I think that
Right.
rather
I
than,
agree,
rather
but
than,
that can also be expressed in terms of probabilities.
yeah, one of the really
If there's
important things to
any
consider.
uncertainty that my plane is gonna crash on takeoff, I'm looking at it.
All these proposals are ripe with uncertainty.
They are, they're-
The things that are really important.
Yeah, but
the things that are
ultimately,
marked.
aren't the uncertainties something that to be dealt with by the readers and by, ultimately in the deliberative process?
Yeah.
Right? This is, what is the purpose of the proposal? We can only do what we can do, that we are not gonna be able to get answers to every
Right.
single question, and the trick in all this is we've been talking about it, is trying to find language that is acceptable to describe, both to describe what we're trying to convey to the public and to really represent what the task force thinks and can, in the range of what you can think of, what you can live with. You know.
So moving ahead a little bit, can I move ahead?
Go ahead.
If you look at the table, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it. This is figure 3. Next page up. This is the channel depth post dam removal, right? And the one sentence that I seen, which I kind of agree with, I would think, more or less, it says the majority of the profile line shows water depths of 1 to 3 feet. And I think that's probably true. The deep hole, I think, that one in the middle is the deep hole, is that it? So the majority of the pond is probably, or the stream is no more than a foot or two deep. Is that correct?
This is,
Am I reading that wrong?
you are reading it correct, but this is, if, remember, this is, correct me if I'm wrong, this is prior to any incising over time.
Yeah,
So-
that's right. This is without channelizing.
Well, no,
No,
no, no,
no,
no, not
no.
channelizing,
Incising.
incising over time. So when, Jeff, I think Jeff earlier was talking about, or maybe I was just reading it and I heard it in Jeff's voice.
All right.
Oh,
You-
it's done.
over time, as sediment flows down, they project that it'll be about 4 feet deeper, if I'm remembering correctly,
Yeah.
over time, and it's really gonna be your first 2-year flood, 5-year flood, that's gonna really
Okay,
add that
I
depth.
can understand
So
that.
this is like
The initial-
as is initial.
I got that. And then the other question would be back to, and maybe you can, you already addressed it, but back to Mark's point about and it just comment, is the stream, so the stream below the dam is not the depth of the stream we'd see once the dam is removed. That's what you're asserting, right?
I found,
That's what EA has asserted. Okay,
yeah, I found the
Okay.
section in the basis of design report.
okay, that's fine. I just wanted to see.
Is it fair to understand though that the incising process is a process that both deepens and narrows? Because you're going to, you're moving the same volume of water. And if it's moving through a deeper channel, it's also moving through a narrower channel. So, if you're behind the Neshoba Brook Bakery, you're looking at something that's almost 20 feet wide and a foot deep. But if suddenly that's only 10 feet wide or 8 feet wide, that's how it becomes 2 and 3 feet deep.
I think it's challenging to look at the downstream side, and I have to go back into the design report to understand
Yeah.
why that is, but the downstream channel was not looked at as what's called the reference reach.
Yeah.
Because of either channelization, or the hard armored bank, I don't remember what
It's
the,
like all, it's
Channel
it's
safety.
2.8 in the basis of design
Okay.
report, if people
Yeah.
wanna look at
so
it.
we should probably all take a look at
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
But that's why they looked at the upstream
Yeah.
reach, and if if you walk those farm fields, the DOC farm
Yeah.
fields. And you see that, it's wide and it's relatively, it's relatively deep. I mean, the analysis that EA provided was, there was certain depths up to the point at the middle of the channel where they couldn't wade any further because it was too deep.
So there's a natural degree of impoundment that still exists
There's a massive
because of,
beaver dam.
and it's sediment. It's clear when you're back, behind Brookside, it's rock. I mean, it's hard on almost every side except for where it floods over towards Winthrop Street, which makes sense. So it's not going to incise or change very much because it's so kind of relatively impermeable. And this presumably, if you've got a stream flowing through sediment, it's going to be very dynamic and move around and squishy, for lack of a better, that's a technical term.
Is there a disagreement on this topic in terms of this graph?
I don't.
The graph, to me, the cross section is, it's hard to read.
Yeah, it's,
We need a long caption. We can make it readable, interpret it or take EA's language. If it's helpful, let's keep it in here. It's also because it's that current conditions, it doesn't capture
Yeah,
the near future, model depth.
for what it's
I
worth,
don't wanna,
when we,
write anything,
when-
if people think it's useful, it's good, but.
for
it's-
what
I
it's
think
worth, which is not very much because it's the task force's decision. But when we read it, we recommended removing it because we thought it was hard for the public to understand.
I would also say without having, like, before and after, it's kind of like,
Also,
okay, well, fine.
Yeah.
Compared to what?
True, yeah.
Line 0, which presumably is a transect of the pond, isn't actually shown on a map in this document, like where you took that
Mhm,
transect, so it's, you gotta
You
know
know where
that
you
line
are.
0 was done, but, so even if line 0 could be overlaid on the page right before it, so that then it's, then you have an understanding of what you're
You need a
looking at.
section.
Right,
But
so are,
it's not a transect. it's
so you
the
all-
Course of the.
Yeah,
Also,
the y-axis on here is like.
If it's the course of it's the course of the channel.
Mysterious.
Yeah.
To the-
So
It's like, it's a line, kind of like the channel.
Okay.
Feet.
Are we comfortable giving this back to the work group?
Yeah.
To, to jettison?
Yes, or
Okay.
to,
Or to make a
to
decision?
do, make a
Right.
decision.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it's informative. I just think it needs explanation.
Yeah, well, it's a
That's what it
question,
is.
I think it's a question for the work group to sort out, and I would just ask you all to just consider the average Concord resident who is gonna be very smart and very educated, but may not be interested in spending the time to try to sort this all out, whether this is really gonna provide them with helpful information when they read the proposal.
Yeah.
So are we moving on, or do you have something?
Yeah.
Dr.
I think at the end of the day, what is important with that chart is that we understand what is the depths today, widths and depths today, and what is it like immediately after dam removal, what are we saying is gonna happen? That the, you know, the deep hole will be 4 to 8 feet deep. If all we said was those things, and then long-term, it will all settle out at 4 feet everywhere, maybe that's what we say. So that could be something to clarify the width and depth question that everybody has. I mean, everybody has that question.
So then I had a question about, you're talking about in probably like the next paragraph. It says that, it's anticipated that there would initially be a need to deepen the channel at this point to ensure passage for paddlecraft. How do you propose to do that? Did I miss that in here? Or? It's right before the adaptive management plan, right above
Yeah,
that.
it says to
Right
ensure,
under the graph.
to ensure passage for paddlecraft, the channel would deepen to approximately 4 feet of sediment temperature.
Are you asking how you can deepen the channel?
There would.
Yeah.
Or where, or
How
how,
would-
Dredge it.
I
how
would
they
think
gonna do
dredging,
that?
yeah.
Are they gonna do it the way we're planning on dredging?
How do
it,
you-
or
Well, I was
there?
gonna ask about that.
I think, how are you deepening? the
Right,
channel
people
to
are
ensure
asking
passage?
Right,
how.
exactly.
What is the method?
Well,
Yeah, I think,
we're calling it excavation.
Well,
This is the thing that we wanted to ask about getting.
Excavation.
So what is, so I guess I'm asking for an explanation,
Yeah,
how
you guys
do you
can-
propose?
You
Understand, yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't project this, but we took a lot of what we were looking at from the work of Sumco. And one of their proposals, I can't remember where, Framingham was it, or Worcester, somewhere,
Mhm,
in which they were trying to do exactly what we're talking about,
mhm.
which is to take an uncertain stream path after removal of a dam
Mhm.
and ensure that A, it runs where they want it to go, and B, it creates meanders instead of just going straight. And they then describe a process of, you lay down construction mat beside where the channel will be, and you can then excavate exactly where you want. You reinforce the channel with coir logs, and you plant root balls beside it so that it will become vegetating.
So I guess when would that happen? And
That would
how much would
happen
that
at the
cost?
same time. We suggested that in order to save money, it be added to the scope of work of the dam removal, so that you would use the same machinery, the same people who are removing the dam to then take their machinery a little further around and do that work.
And they would have the ability and the knowledge and the
Well,
wherewithal to
that's an
do that.
assumption, obviously.
Sumco, I've worked with
They've
them
done that.
at Nassau Properties and they definitely do that.
They, so the only thing is whether the proper term would be dredge rather than excavation.
Yeah, we worked on, that was the end of our meeting. I think we were out of gas, but we're happy for help with a consistent, clear, comprehensive term there, channel manipulation, I think we ended up with, or something like
Yeah.
that. Because dredging, we need input on this, but it would obviously be easier if that material could be placed adjacent to the channel somehow and not need to be placed off-site, not to cut corners, but if that is possible. Anyways,
That might
we
be
need some
something to
information on this.
consult with Delia on.
So how big was the Sumco project you're pulling this from? Like, how long was that?
The channel that they did was 300, well, they did multiple channels. The longest I think was 350 feet. We're talking in what we are talking about, the longest we're dealing with is 500. We were looking at two sites. One is 350 and one is 500. So they're relatively comparable.
So you could get like a cost per linear foot, kind of.
And that's in our budget.
Is that the
So-
250,000 channel
Yeah.
restoration?
Yeah.
Cause I guess I'm not sure what, I mean, that, to me, that seems really low. I think you probably need to stabilize a whole length of stream. I don't know how many hundreds of feet that is, but it's
Well,
gonna be
we-
way
we-
more than 250,000.
Well, that's clearly something that needs to be clarified with an actual bid but based on Sumco's estimate for what they did there, it's $216.5 per linear foot. So you can calculate it out yourself. If you're going to do a 1,000 feet, then it comes to about 225,000, I think, which still leaves us some money for contingency.
But that's one where we'd love to get.
So obviously,
Right.
like everything,
Mhm.
that is subject to change. There's no question. I mean, it's like
Well,
budgeting.
like what you just said needs to be described in this,
Yeah.
like none of that
We don't
detail is
say-
provided.
Right.
The trouble is, we're not allowing annexes and we're trying to keep all the proposals to roughly the same size. So,
But we can,
But I
if we
think,
were criticized for having a proposal that is 2 or 3 times longer than anybody else's and it was cut back. Now you're suggesting we put everything else.
No,
we can go back.
When we say need to deepen the channel at this point to ensure passage for paddlecraft using excavation methods at the same time as dam removal, that would clarify a lot, because this whole group would have
But
been like,
I
oh.
guess we do
see
say
what you
that
mean."
somewhere else.
But it couldn't happen right there.
But how many times do we repeat the same
No,
thing?
no, no, we don't have to anyway, so we can-
We were gonna take this all out anyway.
Internally.
Okay, can I just say one more thing then? Because you have dam removal down. Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake. Never mind.
Good, good.
No, I'm looking for where channel restoration, it says Sumco example budgets. That probably is where you should put, like, Sumco example budgets. From what you have from, do you know what I mean? Did you get it from off the internet, from another project? I think maybe that's where that 250,000.
We got it from Delia.
Where did you get it from?
From Sumco.
So, and you got a cost estimate for that?
So, I didn't get a cost estimate. I asked them for project costs. And they gave me some,
So
For
can't
free?
it just be, I mean, the point is to
They-
cite it,
they
right?
did, and I actually, I think we would need to be careful about
How you,
publishing that
Yeah.
information because that tips their hand a little bit,
Mhm.
but
Oh, I
we
see.
can think about it the way.
They sent an
Right.
amazing tranche of information. It was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
incredibly generous.
That was.
the wording is gonna be important, and, I mean, in all of the proposals,
Interesting.
right, the cost issue has been.
It's a cost issue for all the proposals.
Right, of course.
Yeah, and how to do this and how to do this in a way that's relatively efficient, you know, you can only get so far in getting this cost information.
Right.
Right,
But it's also the design of it. We're coming up with our design. We're saying it's 300 to 500 feet.
Right.
Like, we didn't design how this channel restoration is gonna go. We're
Yeah.
coming up with our best.
Sure.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not designed, like the dredging, we went out to a firm and said, what, how
Right,
would
yeah.
you dredge
like the
this?
dam removal
But
part.
yeah,
of
the
it.
Yeah.
removal part, but this one is kind of, we're out there a little bit flailing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one possible suggestion is if this was sort of information shared from a vendor from their knowledge base, then maybe the write-up should say, vendor 1 and vendor 2 are not assigned I mean, obviously, it's already been in a public meeting, but the final report could protect whoever it was.
Sure, yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
In a way
Yeah.
that's useful,
Yes,
we
it
can
could
know
be
that it,
cited that way,
yeah.
yes, and that's a
Exactly.
good idea.
Okay.
So we have about 12 minutes before we get to the next topic, and we're going to have to move on to that. So you've got 12 minutes to either.
Let's move on, let's move to the next page. Where are we here?
Talk about table two.
Oh, yeah, table two. where's table
Well,
two?
that, some of the stuff we're talking about, I think.
We
is
mentioned-
Is that table
what
two?
We're talking about, yeah,
Okay.
with the costs.
Yeah.
All right, oh, yeah, it's table two.
I was gonna,
Cost
yeah.
and funding source.
Some go stuff.
Oh, okay.
Kind of doing that.
Oh,
All right.
Recreation facilities, ops and maintenance, that 100,000, is that the Giro? What is, what is that?
So that's probably like if we're gonna build a parking lot or a wildlife viewing deck at Commonwealth Ave
Oh,
or
that, okay.
at Pond Street or at the dock, excuse me, at the current dam location, just acknowledging like, hey, those things, they don't last forever, they need some care and maintenance.
So you don't have the Giro boat launch in here?
No.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, we talked, that's another one where we should handle that equivalently.
Yeah.
We just went back and forth and we're like, hey, let's just get some advice because we see that as, I think we all see that as an
Yeah.
ultimate amenity for the site and it can work no matter. And so we didn't want to say like, the rec department's gonna take care of that, but.
Oh, it's just
talk about
because it's
it
in
as a-
progress on a slightly different track,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to include it in here.
However, folks want to handle it.
Good question. Right, you're right, because it is on a different track, isn't it? Yeah. on the
But
right.
it's in other proposals as well, right? So.
yeah, but we've noted that it was, that the
Yeah, I
Recreation
think-
Commission was.
I think we revised so that it was equally stated in all three, but we can, that would be a good way.
Be worth looking. I don't know if it's in ours. I don't know if we.
think so.
I don't think we
it's a
put it in.
comment that we have.
So it is now.
It is now apparently, huh?
Question really for the task force, but it seems like it's happening over there, it's happening.
Well, the
The rec department, so-
Recreation Commission and department have received funds from the Community Preservation Committee to do a study.
Nice.
But and my guess is it'll be back sometime after that for money for the actual construction.
So,
Yeah, I think
so what do you
That
think?
that whole project is probably on the order of 250,000.
Yeah.
So if you want to put a number in there for the Giro boat launch,
Yeah,
which includes this feasibility study and the construction, it's probably several hundred thousand.
and it would probably be funded through, not through CPA or some other
CPC, right?
CPC or some other.
Can't assume anything.
No, you're right, can't assume, right,
So
okay.
does it seem, I mean, Bill and the short-term recurring management team, are you okay with it being in your?
Well, we put 100,000 into, we put more than 100,000 into the Commonwealth Avenue site, which is probably overdoing it.
75,000.
Oh, we did reduce it to 75,000.
No, this one's 75,000.
Okay, that's right, we did
They
reduce
need
it.
to pull out.
Yeah, they need to be
Yeah,
equal out.
they-
We figure it out. I don't know.
They should be probably a similar setup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Nobody's designing something different for Commonwealth Avenue,
Oh,
right? Which
Delia has,
and Keith, Billy, go ahead.
So I just have a question about, or two questions about the funding. I don't think the other groups have identified funding sources and I like that the Dam Removal Group has done that. But a lot of this is capital funds. And I think I saw a comment in here about I don't know where it was, but something about the costs. And there, we have in our proposal, we have that there's $2.6 million available. It's just kind of hanging out there by itself. And I think that it would be helpful if we included that sort of upfront at the top to say between, capital and CPA funds, there is this amount that has been allocated for dredging and put what the amounts are. And state at that same time that those funds could be requested for reallocation towards any of the proposals that are put forward here. I think, and then I think that just might be helpful to.
good point.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I agree.
What's the method to reallocate? What that does it look like?
So, for the CPA funds, the request for reallocation would have to come from the CPC. They would have to make that request to town meeting. It would be a warrant article or part of the other warrant article that they generally put forward. And then for the capital, it would be a request from the Natural Resources Department to
whom? To town meeting again. So we should
Town
put that
meeting.
in, so it's a
Yeah.
town meeting process. So
Yeah,
that'd
yeah,
be good.
it would
Okay.
be a town meeting process.
I think that's come up a few times and I haven't had an answer, so that's helpful.
It would be part of a CPC warrant article or a separate article or part of the overall
Right.
article.
Is it isn't it initiated by whoever put in the original application to the CPC has to say,
So
Correct.
we would submit a letter to CPC asking for the reallocation, but they would be responsible for agreeing to do it and then placing the warrant article.
Yeah. Right, that makes sense.
So it would go for vote, both of those would go for a separate vote.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So the dredging, cost estimates that we received had a, design, escalation factor added in, so I don't think that's really been accounted for in the dam removal. It's only a 30% design, so I think it would be fair to have some kind of additional cost,
Yeah, put
Escalation.
10%
Do
onto
you know
that.
what it was 10%?
10%, so that's not really included in this, and then also, I think the 30% design work that EA did needs to be accounted for in this as a dam removal cost. It's already happened, but it needs to be accounted for, it does contribute to the total.
Okay.
Okay,
We thought about that, or it occurred to me after, maybe after our meeting, and however we wanna handle things in terms of equivalence, because we've all done a lot of reports to get to this point. Are we comparing future dollars to spend, or
You just have to account for it, it's part of the cost of dam removal.
So we're doing that for all the other ones
but
too.
those
right?
are costs.
But are we
There were
doing that
costs-
for all of them?
There are costs for
There were- we
dredging
weren't-
too.
So we are showing that in the
I mean-
dredging thing.
Well,
What's
there
been
was,
spent on
there was spent to do a 30% design, and they did coring and field work and surveys, that was not for dredging. That was for
But
dam
thought
removal.
there
are
was
you
something that was-
suggesting, I think what I'm hearing is that, I mean, there were costs that were done for the sediment testing, for the
30%
design.
design for dam removal.
Yeah, we actually went straight to 100% design, but for dredging. Not for dam removal, so you're saying identify the dam removal costs that have already been incurred, but I think what I'm hearing is,
Then we
what
could
about
do
the
the
costs
same
that
on the
were
dredging.
incurred for dredging to this stage?
What
to
do
be
you think
consistent.
about, is it practical or helpful to capture simply the amount that the task force is essentially expended on this kind of getting these estimates and this additional work in the course of its work as a total, this is part of the task force's
yeah, because we spent, what,
Costs.
$10,000 doing a bid, right? Or whatever.
rather than trying to break
I
it
think
up.
that's actually a good idea.
Okay,
Sounds like
sure.
a good
Why don't you do
opinion.
that? Why don't you do that?
You know, I think the
But the
expenditures
10%
to
needs be
date
added.
Oh,
on
the 10%.
various proposals and estimates and things like that in an appendix someplace that goes in with our
Yeah.
report.
Yeah,
That says
that makes
this
sense.
is what's been spent on various items might be a useful way to do that rather than.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
Confirm, Keith, you said it's a 10% escalation clause?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask for some clarification, because I'm confused about what we're asking for. In the steps, we outlined specifically on page 19, we specifically say, or am I looking at the wrong? Is it, yeah, version 19, it says, 0.3 finalization of the dam removal plans to expand the 30% plan to 100%. And then I thought in the budget, which is table 2,
Page 29. Oh my God.
page
Yeah, they're right.
there it is. I actually thought that that's what the 55,000 was. At line item 1, was finalizing the design and contract preparation. Is that not the case?
line one there, additional sediment studies?
No, line 3.
It says final design and contract prep.
Third line contract.
Oh, 55.
That would be the 100% design.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, those are lines that were in the 30% basis of design report, so. if
Right.
those-
You already caught that. So you already have that in there.
No, I think Keith's asking for a line of what we've already paid.
Right. This is
To,
like,
to get the document
future-
we have, which is the
this is
30%
future cost.
Oh, I see, you're right, okay.
Right, but is there agreement that capturing the total amount that was spent during the task force's work as just a total, rather than trying to attribute some amount?
You can always break it down in that kind of, yeah, I think that
I would
makes
break
sense,
it down.
because we gave 10,000 for one thing, I can't remember what the other things that we given money out for, we've had votes, so writing it all out for us would be
So
very
then you
helpful.
yeah.
Yeah, and just detail it in one.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay,
So the work of the task force.
Yeah.
Yeah, work with the task force so far.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay, that
so-
makes sense.
so it's 8:01.
Can I just ask one?
Yes, oh,
question?
yes.
So this is something that has come up and it's in the dam removal proposal about the question about, changes to, property deeds. And I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
wondering,
Where are you on?
I'm not sure where it is.
Uncertainties, I think,
Uh,
or that's where it ended up, I don't know if it's
It was
still
the
there.
things not
Yeah.
considered, it was the extended boardwalk not considered.
Go down,
Instead,
go
one of
down.
go down.
Where are you?
Right, just like a
Areas.
line or two
Keep
down.
going down.
Areas for
Not
conditional,
extended
additional
boardwalk.
investigation.
Yes, property lines are unclear and will require legal advice and professional service. So I'm wondering, do you have examples of those deeds that are not clear?
I think I looked at this like before this committee, the group was formed, because some neighbors had asked about that, and I had some of the deeds, because whatever, but I didn't keep that folder. But some of the deeds, as I recall, say to, 100 feet to a point, and then turn right and go 100
Yeah.
feet. Some of them say to the edge of water.
Yeah,
So how is that handled?
Mm.
I think is a question that's arisen
Yeah.
multiple
Yeah,
times.
and I know that's a Concord Scout House
Yeah.
concern, what is the margins of the island
Oh, yeah.
with the
Yeah.
change.
Come up on other projects as well.
And some people actually have a line drawn in the water,
Right,
so.
Right.
What's that line?
what does that mean? Right.
They've been surveyed in the pond. For boundary.
Well, that
So
would
we have
almost seem like
all-
that's
we have all of the
that's a
above
number
right
of.
Yeah, that
feet.
before,
That
yeah.
is a fixed number of-
That's easier to
Counting
handle.
out, yes.
But
So,
but we have, we have a different, we have a number of different variations right now.
So I think this hasn't come up, but Delia did get a letter from town council about the conservation protection of the land that would be exposed in a dam removal scenario. It could be helpful to get an interpretation of how our deeds handled when it says edge of water and then the edge of water
Yeah,
changes.
that's,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends on the deeds, and I've reviewed the Warner's Pond deed, and it does give, it's a meets and bounds. It's probably a 9-page deed,
Right.
because there's a lot of changes in course.
I'm guessing most
but was
people would
it-
assume that the
The
you
deep
go
day.
in the edge of water, but I'm also assuming that precedent would show like, no, it's fixed and. but I don't know.
It depends on what the deed says.
Okay.
yeah, not clear.
So it might be a conflict, you know.
I'm not sure that it is,
Well,
because the
there-
Warner's Pond deed is very clear.
All right, but that's clear. But what if a family, if a family's,
That's what I
deed,
think,
that's a conflict, I'm saying. Because
Yeah.
if someone else doesn't have that, that would be a conflict.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut you off here in the interest of time.
Is there anything?
To be fair though,
Oh, to be
are
fair.
we finished with dam removal?
That's-
Nobody on this task
Yeah.
force has any more comments on the dam removal proposal, because this is it.
No.
It's not
Not
yet,
that
really.
Sending this subgroup off with an assignment, is that the extent of the assignment?
All I have. I don't know, anybody
We might
else?
be done, we might be done. I just-
Let's ask. That's a good question. Ask if anybody else has anything else to bring up.
Right. Is there anything else to bring up?
Keith raised several issues.
Yeah, he did.
In a written
That's true.
statement. I think those need to be addressed.
So in that line of thinking, can we go back to the slides? Just not to go through them now, but to let you know that they exist. The slides that we have for tonight are aimed at a lot of the comments that Keith and Vicky and Chris and others of you made. A lot of them about the dam removal, but not all.
Not all.
And so some of these may be things that we haven't talked about. And I'm not gonna go through them all now, but I want you to be aware of them, because you can look at the slides and you can look at how we've kind of delineated out what we thought, what the issue is roughly.
So
what the
this-
concern seemed to be, what the text was, and then what the text actually says now. And then we have kind of in our pockets some ideas about if there is still a problem, still concerned about what the text now says, what possible additional revisions could be made
So this will be available to us on,
through the slideshow.
through the slideshow.
Right.
I mean, you'll have that available to us. You'll send it out to us.
Send it
Sure,
out to
okay.
everybody, share it.
So
We'll have
I
that.
am curious about Malcolm's comment before we move on to anything else about, I think it was very good to ask about, Keith, whether you had anything you want to absolutely bring up now about this, or you just want to handle it in some other.
Yeah, I mean, without looking at them like on the screen as a group, I don't know if I can point to any specific comment right now, unless we wanna look at them.
So here's another question for the group to hold following what you're saying, Keith. So you've made a specific decision about a couple of issues to go in a small group tonight, which is great. What is your feeling about if other issues came up in that forum, he thinks of something, or if something else is spotted that wasn't addressed, what are your thoughts about having that group add other issues on its own, or would you rather that it came back to the task force for vetting before?
I
it
think
goes?
that subgroup needs to hear what other people think before they go off and decide on language. And if people have an opinion, it should be heard.
Okay.
If
There
you
should be a
have
red
someone
line.
Potentially from every subgroup. Perhaps that person can back, kind of be like, this is something that I feel like our subgroup should be able to handle versus like,
Mhm.
you know what? You're right, this is, I think as long as everyone from each subgroup is sort of involved with this other subgroup, I think. And sort of going to what you were saying is like, we, at the beginning, like, I have confidence that everyone that Bill has talked about is gonna represent.
Yeah.
Well, and, you know.
But what if we have issues in here and I have some or thoughts about what's good? And can we use that elsewhere, or some things that I have questions on? Do I know that the subgroup's gonna tackle those without talking about them?
Oh, you mean the other two subgroups? Oh, no, I think they need
I
to,
interpreted what they were saying, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I interpreted the question differently. I think.
So you have questions for the other.
For the other group.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
true. I think we
Yeah.
should go back. We still need to go back over those other two groups.
How do we do
Also, it would be.
Other meeting.
Tell me your process. Do it, like, do you want me to write it up?
Sunrise?
Right.
So what we would do is send the comments that, we did send the comments.
No,
These are new.
These are new based on what I
It is a
received
new document.
on version 2.
Just as we did.
yeah, I think you're gonna have to go back over the next two. Yeah, I mean, what we did today is we jumped over to number 3. And I think in my mind, at least, we were gonna go back, if, I mean, ideally, we're then gonna go to number 1 and number 2 and look at those
In the
again.
beginning, but we.
Yeah.
Spoke all the time.
So we're gonna have to go back and look at number 1 and number 2 again.
But in the
I can't wait.
meantime, if I would like, if it's possible, and you have comments, we would like your comments. Send your comments to CDI, send to the planning team, okay? Because it gives us a jump start in understanding what is on people's minds, and we can start to sort of frame it out so that we
But
can.
that doesn't mean they can't bring it here if it
No,
came back.
they-
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Come here.
Yeah,
It'll come
I know,
here.
but they may bring it up here without having sent it to you
That's
because
fine.
I understand.
That's
Yeah,
totally
okay,
fine.
that's fine.
But it's like the same process that we followed last time. Look at the proposals, look at the changes in the language,
Mhm.
look at anything else that you want to look at.
Right.
And if you can write it down and send it to us, it is really, really helpful because
Mhm.
we don't have a lot of extra time.
Well,
Right? And we
I
want to
honestly,
make sure that we cover everything. We have to cover everything.
there's no work yet for that fact group because you have to wait till we go through the next two proposals to comb through them and to see what else comes up that we might want to look, have, reviewed. It seems to me,
But
because there might be some commonality, right?
There might
but we
be.
don't
Yeah.
think that the group should start even on the two issues. that-
Packing those 3 things or whatever.
I mean, you can, but I think you might find commonality. I think the most fair thing is to let the next two groups make their, listen to the comments here at large, and then bring it back, and then bring it to the group to comb through all of them.
Okay, so I have another
But
comment.
maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
About that. So we've talked a lot about dam removal tonight, clearly. So Rachel, I'm assuming that you're going back now and you're gonna incorporate these changes one more time.
Oh,
And so when we see these next 3 proposals again, they're gonna be probably a little bit different.
Yes.
Okay, so then we'll get that, we'll have an opportunity to read that. And so then when we come back to the next meeting on the 20th, we're gonna go through all
all
3.
3, yeah, we're gonna have to.
We're gonna have to, I think, Toby may have some brilliant idea how to do this, but I still am wondering, given that the 3 issues that you identified tonight are very specific to the dam removal project proposal, is there a real objection, is there a real problem in having a small group start to sort those out? It just puts them a little bit ahead.
It feels like there's all
Doesn't
many
it-
issues that they.
Doesn't
that
appear,
they're
they're
talking about.
big issues.
I think
So I
we should
think-
try it and we should try and come back with whatever they've got.
So let them go, let them do it. Is
But
there-
they should keep in mind, to your point, Bill, like, if they're talking about, I think the first one was biodiversity, whether it's
Right.
more or less,
Mhm.
keeping in mind that all 3 of them need a biodiversity take.
Review,
Right.
I agree.
So when you come up with your new language, it's something that applies to all 3 schemes.
Same thing would be true for costs.
Same thing
Right.
to review, how are we
Right.
dealing with costs, and then, I don't know, I can't remember what the third one.
Right.
There was
it's
recreation.
Recreation, so
Right.
it's gonna have to be, yeah, same for all.
Same thing, all
And we
three.
didn't even
You have to
talk
solve
about
it for all
recreation.
three.
No, we didn't get to recreation.
Yeah, so you might not be able to tackle that one, but
But the
go for
That's
it.
a really
The three
hot
that
issue.
were, the three that were identified was the fishery issue, cool water, cold
fishery,
water
right.
species, the habitat diversity question, and
The cost.
greenhouse gas that was cost.
Was budget, fisheries, habitat, costs, I thought recreation was.
No, we
But we
did not.
skipped- but we-
Back at the high
Okay.
level.
But which,
maybe those
which is a
three are good.
mistake.
It is a yeah, we should look at it.
Recreation, we had
Recreation.
channel width and depth, which we clearly delved into today.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that we took as a subgroup.
Yeah.
Right, the subgroup is
Yeah.
taking those.
So
Uh,
that's, and
He
access
phrased
to
these
Scout
dams.
Island, which is again related. So, you know, a lot of it.
You actually agreed on a few things, which is really good. I'm gonna tell you what they are because you might start.
You don't want to change our mind.
Watch the recording, Michael.
Just remind us that we did that when we talk about.
Okay.
the tax.
I just want the task of the subgroup to be finite
Yes.
and us all, well, you all, not to have a relief valve in mind, like, let's just kick that. to-
Right, no.
No,
I think the group has,
Yeah,
you know,
we've done-
in the
we've grappled with a lot
defense,
tonight, yeah.
the group has really wrestled with these and sorted out a lot of
Yeah.
them. You know, even though we didn't cover everything, sorted out a lot.
as long as
So-
you guys come back and say, we talked about it, we agree on this new language, not like we couldn't do it, and then
Oh,
it
no.
might not be finite.
That's
right?
fine if it's
Yeah,
three things, not if it's 20.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
But if you come back and you say we couldn't come to agreement, then it's not finite, that item gets kicked back.
Oh, I just mean a finite list of.
Oh, I see, I see.
It's a finite list, and I do think it'll be easier to kind of spread the work out. To have the small group start now
Yeah.
on things that you have, and then come back to the task force. It'll be a little bit iterative, but also it could be a kind of a testing of the process, and that if it works, you know, that could be really helpful.
well, how are you gonna possibly prepare a report that doesn't include their input from that small group?
As I said, I'm really not sure.
I don't think you can. I think if you're gonna have them work on those items,
You have to wait.
yeah, you're gonna
If
have
we
to,
come up- if we came up with proposed clarifications in, you know,
Just
with
what
enough
the-
advanced
Yeah.
time, we could share them.
I agree with
Okay.
that.
It could
That
be in
makes
there,
that
not
makes
Okay,
sense.
so the next meeting.
Proposed
Exactly.
compromise language.
That makes
The
perfect
next
sense.
meeting is the 30th. Just inserting.
2 weeks from now.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
so that's the.
guys can do this. You can knock this off in a couple of weeks.
Do it, try January.
Okay, so as I understand it, is this what's happening? So the task, the small group, the fact checkers, the reconciling this are gonna work on language. It's gonna try to clean things up for us. They're gonna be in touch with Rachel and Toby to help them, once they have that, and to help them, so you can rewrite things as they, as you've heard, and then you're gonna bring that back to us at the next meeting, correct?
Correct.
All right. Meanwhile, we still have to get the other two groups to go through the same torturous process again.
It's not this torture.
I know, I'm half joking. I know.
You've done this.
Yeah, we have, you have, yeah, absolutely.
So it's only about the rewritten.
No, and it makes sense.
Right.
I think it makes
Yeah.
sense.
And it doesn't delay the task force members from all reading everything that you've got so far and any
Right.
questions you've gotten so far, so we can keep everybody.
And we're gonna send you comments.
on the same
Yeah,
page.
that's,
Please send us comments because it just speeds things up. It really just keeps us on track. Okay?
yeah.
So thank you very much for a really productive conversation. And now we are into a brief update on the public workshop planning. And then task force member topics, issues and next steps. So for the timeline planning, the next task force meeting that we're looking at is January 30th at Harvey Wheeler, I think, yes.
Correct.
I don't know if people had that on their calendars or if that's something
Yeah,
that
I
I'm
have it.
scrolling on right
Yeah.
now. Okay. At that meeting, one of the big items is going to be, well, it's actually not that big, from our perspective, is to prepare for the public meeting process. We have worked on, CBI has developed a mailing brochure, which is still too long, but we're gonna get it smaller. But we're working on that sort of brochure that, you know,
lays out each of the proposals.
So what gets mailed out has to be a postcard. Like, that's it. So otherwise, the cost is
Oh,
astronomical.
I can, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Library still has a microfiche rate.
So what I'm gonna suggest is that,
So our big plan is not what we thought it was gonna be.
no,
Okay.
and I think it's just going to be.
Pleasant, save the day.
Save the date, here's the meeting
It
coming up.
it can be two-sided,
Yep,
and a QR code with a link to the website, and on the website will be
That's
the
good.
summaries.
Yeah, that's.
Okay, those,
So
so
summary
on the
would be there.
website, there'll be the summaries or or will there?
I think everything, we put the summaries, or people may decide, skip the summaries and just go straight to the
That's,
proposal.
that would be my.
Just on the summaries.
I think so too.
There's a lot of important information in
Yeah,
full.
So keep the proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
summaries just don't do justice.
That's fine because it's really hard.
Yeah, so now you don't really have to do
now
it.
you don't have to
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah.
That's really nice, thank you.
but that means you, the task, the fact checkers have to get in touch with with the small group then, right?
Yes.
Did you say you were on that?
But can.
No, not.
So, but can the postcard, because one thing that's been interesting for people is when they hear what, what our topics are of discussion, right? They all want to know, what are you discussing next week? What are you discussing at the next meeting? So I think it would be interesting on the postcard to say, we have 3 proposals.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
will be discussed at
Yes.
this meeting. There'll be 1, 2, and 3.
Right,
And then people will be like, oh, I'm interested in that.
Right,
Yep.
And it might get them to come.
yeah, I
So
agree.
if CBI
with
can help.
cost estimates.
Yes,
Estimates.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, because they asked for that. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
They want estimates on the postcard?
No,
no,
no.
no, no.
I'm
no,
just saying,
just-
with
The
cost
task
estimates.
force is going to
Okay.
present 3
Okay.
proposals. There are 1, 2, 3 with
Right.
cost estimates.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then people will be like, I'm going.
Right,
Yeah.
because that's the first
question.
question.
All
they'll
right,
have.
that's the first.
On the overall concept, this is a forum, it's not a hearing, so this is to present
Right,
the
it's a public
proposals.
hearing. I
To
public,
get input and Q and A.
correct.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Is to make it'll basically be a presentation, an opportunity for questions and answers. CBI will facilitate it, CBI will design it. And we'll set it up in a way to try to get the most useful responses as we can from the public, as opposed to just people asking random questions. I'm gonna try to keep it focused.
I think I sent you a copy of the postcard from the prior public meetings that was just sent out to residents.
Oh, I
So it was a while ago.
It's probably somewhere in my file.
Yeah.
So that's the plan, is the next meeting, we'll talk more about that and what the plan is. We don't see it as being a heavy lift for the task force members. It would be great to have input from people about what, because you know the community way better than we do about what will work and what wouldn't, and what the venue is gonna be like, where we are doing it, and is it going to be?
Are we deciding that now?
No,
No.
no, she just said and where the venue will be. will be.
And because if we're gonna, I mean, if we're having, well, do we want to decide a
We
date?
should, I think, well, all I have is that it's the week of the 24th, and we didn't
Okay.
get past that in the planning group
No,
Right.
meeting, so it's a
I
good
think it's the
question
planning
to
group.
ask.
Does that sound like a week? Week of the 24th?
The week
That's not
after
vacation week.
No.
No, it's past vacation week. My only concern is we may not be ready, but we'll just have to be ready. I
Well,
guess.
so we will need to have
Well, the new middle
immediately
school.
after
Yeah.
the next meeting, I mean, we need to be ready to go with the date and locale. What that postcard's gonna say. and
Yeah,
description and send out.
Can we talk about the locale now? Is
Yes.
there,
Sure.
I don't know what is available, you haven't talked about a few different places.
We need to record it. We need a place that can be recorded.
Well, one place we think can be recorded is the Goodwin Room in the library. No?
They won't do it.
They won't do
past-
it.
but- No, they will. Timing.
Oh,
Oh,
isn't-
that's
they-
right.
They only do it until, I think,
You said 7 or something, 6 or 7?
right, they don't do
Oh.
it. in
Really
the
early, 'cause they
evening.
close.
Right.
It's like the middle school.
The auditorium is not ready.
So it's either the select, the hearing room at the townhouse or Harvey Wheeler.
Harvey Wheeler.
And
Can we set it up in Harvey Wheeler?
so
So
we
you
did
can
do
see
Harvey
some-
Wheeler. It's much more difficult to do sound at Harvey
Yeah.
Wheeler.
You should do the town.
I think
Yeah.
we should use the townhouse,
I
because
agree.
MMN will be able to cover it better.
Then that's a major plus.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So townhouse,
That was
and the date is not sure yet. So or is it sure that week?
Can we find out when it's available that week and
Yeah.
try to do it based on that?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
So Monday's
Let's
not a
just
good
set it.
day.
That's it?
Not Monday.
Not Monday.
not Monday.
And not Friday.
What about Thursday?
The 27th. I love Thursday, the 27th.
Works for me.
What is it?
Works for me.
Any nays?
Is there a finance committee meeting that night?
I don't know, I'm town, so
It sounds like it's a good.
that was finance committee.
Paul, do you have any meetings?
Yeah, Paul, you're.
2 days, just, you wanna say Tuesday or Thursday, and just so,
Either
we can
or.
be sure that the
Yeah.
room is available.
Mhm,
Sure,
that sounds
Sure.
reasonable.
sure.
Wait, what time are we talking? What time are we talking?
I was thinking 7, what
Seven?
do you think?
7 to 9?
Yeah, 7 to 9.
Or
Okay.
6 to
Some
9.
people can't make it at 6, I
Yes,
think.
okay.
6:30.
There was a specific
Yeah.
request after the
Toby
last
Creek.
meeting to make it later.
Yeah.
So
I don't,
Yeah.
So 7
I
to
agree.
9, it should be on Zoom and it should be recorded. with
Yeah,
the
yeah.
3 things that came out last time.
Absolutely.
Make sure we have that
Zoom?
figured out.
I think we should talk about Zoom, because how does that, that makes it more challenging to allow people on Zoom to participate.
No, it's more, I
Um,
think they should hear the 3 proposals, like whatever we're presenting should be on Zoom.
To be on Zoom or recorded.
Or recorded, or in other words,
They
live,
asked-
or
they
live.
asked For it live.
Can you have it live? I mean, can we
So
do it
Rain
on,
and Van can stream, they can live stream it.
that's
They
what
do
we
the
want.
Select board meeting.
Yeah, that's what we really want. We don't care if it's Zoom, we want
So
to
then-
live stream it.
Whatever.
So then they
Live
can
stream.
participate, but they can watch.
Yeah,
it
that
live,
sounds
what
right.
we're saying.
Yeah,
I'm sorry?
So they can they can watch it, but they can't participate.
I mean,
But they
it's
can
a
ask
conversation,
questions.
the participation just gets much more complicated.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Somebody's gotta manage that.
But they can ask
Zoom.
questions during the public comment period, like.
Right.
we had
If they're on at home,
Yeah. They
Yeah.
do now.
I don't
In the
know.
Select board meetings,
Yeah.
no?
They do.
Can they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, select board does a hybrid,
Yeah.
so they
Right.
do a Zoom meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
so can we do a hybrid? Can we do what the select board does?
Why not?
That's simple enough.
yeah, let's do that.
Good.
I mean, that's simple for
It's
you,
tried
I
and true
understand.
technology.
Well,
Just be prepared for Zoom bombing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
well, usually.
Just be prepared for Zoom
They
bombing.
said it's
Yeah.
probably best if
Yeah.
it's set up as a webinar format, that way people have to be promoted to talk.
Yeah.
Put in there.
I don't think we subscribe to webinars anymore. There's a real cost associated with that. But actually, I think FinCom does webinars, don't they?
Yeah,
So maybe the town still has that.
I think they still want, there still is one, it's just not, so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
February 27th, 7 to 9 at the townhouse. Toby will be the facilitator. I think we're only gonna use one facilitator. Um,
How many more of our meetings do we have between now and then?
One.
One. So so that meeting, either we make it together or that's it,
we
right?
don't necessarily only have one, we've only scheduled one.
That's true.
Schedule a second.
That's true. You could.
We're trying to be very, stingy with our meetings
Yeah.
because we would really rather save our meetings for after. When we could do,
But let's do what we need to. Let's
Kind
just, let's get there.
Yeah, I think we
Let's
need
just
to
get there.
be sure that we're doing the right thing with our
Yeah.
presentation.
You absolutely need one before the forum, figure out who's doing what.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's right.
So it might be 2 meetings.
It's probably gonna be 2 meetings
Yeah,
before that. Yeah.
that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what we talked about in the.
Was it? I don't remember.
Like, well, we're just gonna have to move really fast after the public meetings. We'll have a meeting right after the public meeting.
No, I mean, you need 2 meetings before,
I
yeah.
agree, The meeting on the 30th and the meeting in February. Do you want to pick the date? in
Yes,
February
let's
now?
do that.
Did we pick one already?
No,
No,
no. Like the week of February 10th.
Is that before vacation?
The week before.
Yeah, why don't you just do the 13th and then we're on an every other schedule?
Could we actually do Tuesday?
I get closer to the forum,
Yeah,
you know.
Well, that's school vacation week, and I think that's challenging for some people.
yeah.
Okay, so
Maybe
what about the
11th.
11th, February 11th?
Do we wanna check, just check availability that week? I mean, if we do it virtually or something like that, I mean, I could.
it's
I
like
may be
the,
out of town, you'll
the
be
question is,
out. Yeah,
is it-
okay.
do a lot of people have a problem with the 14th? The
14th.
week of the week of
17th, you
the
mean.
school vacation.
I think Valentine's Day is not a good time to have.
Oh, we can.
It's a great day.
Bring our sweetheart.
My birthday.
Oh,
There you go.
Oh, sing again.
Let's sing again.
Is the 17th?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you're looking for the week before that.
It's his birthday today, everybody.
Oh, Malcolm, happy birthday.
Okay, so what day is the week of the 9th, right, the 10th?
And
Tuesday, the eleventh.
We said the 11th, Tuesday night.
11.
Tuesday, the eleventh.
Tuesday, the 11th.
It's 6:15, 6:30.
I don't care.
It's gonna be
Is
quick,
there,
we're
there's
just.
a preference to alternate from Thursdays?
Oh, I don't
No,
struggle.
Thursday,
People
the
couldn't
13th,
make
it's Tuesday, the
Thursday,
13th,
unfortunately.
Why would-
I can, Jeff, if you.
Yeah, I've got something
Only
on the 11th with option, but it's.
That you
I could
can't
do later on Thursday, the thirteenth.
I can't do the 13th at all.
Can't do the 13th? Okay.
Boy,
How you doing?
I have no life.
I can send you to one of mine, you wanna go to?
Yeah.
Said you want to drive the kids around?
No.
Wednesdays are out, the 12th.
It's okay with me.
The
Wednesday works.
I can't do that. Well, I can do. No, I can't. I'm on 6.
I can't do, no,
All right, do the 11th. Let's do the 11th.
6:30.
There's.
Pick good time today.
Six
Listen,
P.M. the
I've been
11th.
rushing to
We're
get
talking
here for
about-
this.
But it's gonna be at Harvey Wheeler, we said this
Six?
next one, or?
And the 30th is at Harvard.
We could,
We
we
didn't-
can check on the availability.
Yeah.
That's easier for you
So
guys.
2:11 at. Is a task force meeting.
So what time did we say?
6. Unless you want to change the time.
Well, if it's 6, I'm gonna be in my car,
What time do you get here?
or 6:15 or 6:20 or something. I'll be in Needham till 5:30.
Does it matter to us? Can we say 6:15? I mean, what was
It's
the
totally up to you.
Yeah, I'm
It's
okay
how
with
late-
that.
6:15, 6:30? We're gonna be running late anyway, you know? Want to say 6:30 that day? Is that a possibility for everyone?
I
It
work
goes
for
then
me.
till
better
9,
Better for me too.
All right, 6:30.
then it goes to 9, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we serving food?
Bring a snack.
Oh, yeah.
Really missing at least.
That's true. That's absolutely right.
Can we do pizza night and some bottles of red wine? We get it all done?
That's a good idea. Now you're talking.
Get to that point, then we plan for the public meeting for that on the 11th, and we will have a public meeting on the 27th.
Yeah.
And then we will have a meeting following the public meeting to take the feedback that we got and then move right into deliberations, and that will give us 2 meetings.
Wait, the public meeting on the 27th.
25th or 27th, we're looking.
Oh,
at dates.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just for room availability.
no, good. You're right. Absolutely right.
I missed that. Okay, so just bear that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can go to public comment.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
Forgot all about it. Are we all
The
set?
room is full.
Yeah, the room is full. Are we ready? Okay, we ready? All right, so we're opening up now, if you're still with us, for public comment. Again, we ask you to keep it brief, unlike the way we've been acting tonight. No more than say 2 minutes per person, and be respectful in your comments, please. All right, anyone? Anyone on the computer, on your screen?
Guess we
How about this
cleaned
crowd here? We cleaned out the people here.
Peter left his fragment.
He did leave his Phragmites here. Is that it? No one?
That's it. Okay, great.
All right.
So if no further business, in front of the task force, I am adjourning the meeting
Yay.
at 8:30.